This episode is brought to you in part by Hindsight. Hindsight is a new science fiction novel by author Matthew Keegan. Hindsight is a time travel adventure that Tim Truax at the Nerd Room calls a brilliant tapestry of time travel and history that will leave you questioning everything, impossible to put down. Find the links to Hindsight at talkstarwars.co.uk/hindsight and order your copy today. This episode is also brought to you by the Talk Star Wars Patreon community. If you'd like to support what we do now and help us expand our programming, head to patreon.com/talkstarwars and become a patron. In return, you'll get an exclusive daily podcast, a monthly newsletter, Facebook Live sessions, priority release podcasts, and monthly prize giveaways and a whole lot more. You'll also get access to our VIP-only Facebook group. This group contains a global community of Star Wars fans that have become dear friends. So head to patreon.com/talkstarwars today and become a TSW patron. This is Talk Star Wars, the official podcast of talkstarwars.co.uk. Hello everyone, welcome to episode 100 of Talk Star Wars. I'm Mark.
I'm Rob.
And I'm Paul.
And Steve will be joining us shortly, as soon as he makes his way back home. But in the meantime, we're going to kick things off, I think, aren't we, gents? Because we have got one hell of a show to get to tonight.
Yes.
Big chunky show notes, right? So we've got couple of bits of great news to start off with this evening. So first off, we wanted to say congratulations to Jared Peppard and his wife Shanika for the birth of their baby, Ezra Kieran Bridger Peppard, who was born on the 18th of December. Star Wars fans will be able to pick a couple of key names out of there. So Ezra, welcome to the Talk Star Wars community. And congratulations, Jared, and congratulations, Shanika, who clearly did all the work, for bringing the second Talk Star Wars baby into the community.
Nice. What did Ezra think of the film, by the way?
He loved it. First time, he loved it. He loved it so much, he gave his dad a chance to see it before he popped into the world, because that was touch and go there for a while. No, it's great news. I'm really excited for them. What a wonderful way to celebrate The Last Jedi and Christmas to boot with the birth of Ezra Kieran Bridger Peppard. What a name! That
is a mouthful.
If that baby doesn't grow into a movie star,
please,
I don't know what will. Oh. It's great stuff. All right, let's move on to also let's congratulate Katie. So this month we knighted a TSW VIP, which we all want to do from time to time, and we selected Katie Stubbs. Katie's been this wonderful member of our community most of this year, I think, but not just the Talk Star Wars community, but the Star Wars Commonwealth in general. She's very supportive of all the shows, and she made a comment recently about how much it's meant to her to be a part of the Commonwealth community. So I just thought we just needed to acknowledge that in a huge way and celebrate it. So Katie is now our latest knight. So she will be added to StarWarsCommonwealth.com. You can find her contact details there. I suggest throwing her a follow if you don't already. All right, let's get to some thank yous. So a huge thank you to Justin Lyon for becoming a Patreon supporter this week. He joined the Patreon campaign just a few days ago. Justin's an awesome guy. Thank you so much for that, and welcome to the group, sir. And a big thank you to Colin Sproul, Michael Aben, and Steve Cooper for liking the Facebook page this week. And many thanks to Tatooine Sons and Ian McAndy for the YouTube subscriptions also. And for those who are subscribed to YouTube, whom I can't see, thank you very much too. I know some people keep their details private, so...
Got their cloaking devices.
They've got their cloaking devices on, yeah, to be sure. So thank you very much for that. All right. Usually we get into our YouTube comments, but before we do, Rob, we missed you last week on our
missed him.
As in, he wasn't there.
I like that.
I thought it was the best show ever.
Did you hear that, Paul? He said
I'm sure
he liked
you did.
it.
It was you got to do most of the talking, Paul. I'm sure you loved it.
Yeah, I did actually. I listened back and I did talk way too. I overcut.
No, you were enthusiastic. It was fantastic.
For sure.
It was
I
fantastic.
was very enthusiastic.
Yeah, no, it's good. But we got the patrons will have got Steve's reaction as well, because Steve jumped in at the end of the show for about half an hour to tell us what he thought of it as well. So that's in the Patreon feed. And if we get a second later, we'll let Steve have his say on the main show. But Rob, I wanted to give you the opportunity to share with us your thoughts on The Last Jedi. You saw it on the preview evening, did you, on the Wednesday?
On the Wednesday into Thursday night, yeah, into Thursday morning, yeah.
And that was at Rochester?
Indeed. Yes, same. Not the same screening as Jeremy, but the same cinema as Jeremy, the same screening as Omer. So we were actually sat a few rows apart.
Oh, cool! Did you get to see the whole movie, or did you miss the beginning?
I actually did. Yeah, our screening ran on schedule, which is nice.
Oh, that's good because Jeremy got
unfortunately,
ripped
Jeremy
off.
wasn't so lucky. Yeah, we were the ones who told him.
Oh, right.
Serious?
He found out too late, but I texted him as we were going into the screen saying, "Look, get back over," because he'd gone over the road to get some food. So I texted him to say, "Get back over." Because there's been a mistake and the movie started 20 minutes early. And then I thought about it and I added, yes, I'm serious, because it would be exactly like Jeremy to think, oh, he's very funny, winding me up. But actually, it had actually happened. Bit of a shambles, really.
Just not cool.
No. Well, I mean, it's probably quite dodgy for them as well. Didn't they break a street date technically by doing that?
If it went on before 1 minute past midnight, then they were chancing their arm a little bit.
Obviously they did it by accident, but nevertheless,
it's not good though, is it? It is absolutely not good.
I'm sure Disney are very understanding and wouldn't possibly nail them to the wall for that.
No, well, we'll see.
Yeah, time will tell.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll find out.
Read about any cinemas mysteriously burning to the ground, kids.
And a giant mouse running away saying, "Wasn't me."
Oh, alibi.
So Mickey, what did you think of the movie, Rob?
I liked it, didn't love it.
Okay.
That's kind of in a nutshell. I'll preface this by saying that I'm getting increasingly bored of the notion that anybody who didn't like the movie doesn't like change. The reason I'm so annoyed with, so sick of that argument is because everything they did that was kind of counter to our expectations, I actually really liked.
Yeah.
What annoyed me was the hour of Marvel-esque, and not just Marvel-esque humor, but bad Marvel-esque humor, like really quite ropey. Half the time I expected Luke to sort of turn to the camera and go, "Get it?"
Yeah.
And like a
yeah, there was some of that humour in there, I must admit.
Yeah, it really kind of, I don't know, it just grated on me a lot. But like I say, overall I enjoyed the movie. It's not my favourite. It's probably second out of the Disney ones, behind Rogue One.
Right.
I liked it way better than Force Awakens. Let me think what else I can say about it, really. It's probably going to middle out, I think, in my rankings.
Yeah.
Probably going to be kind of in the middle, maybe in the top half, top part of the middle bit. That's kind of where I see it right now. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm sure you guys did it to death, but I had a few gripes with the movie that I didn't feel they wouldn't be fixed by multiple viewings.
And that is
Space Lair is dumb.
Space Lair, yeah, that wasn't something.
I've not heard anybody say that was good.
No, it's not something I was terribly keen on, but it bothered me a lot less the second time around. I think it's because it's such a jarring thing.
It is rather, yeah. I mean, I understand that to a point, say just my thing was, it was just there were things like that. It was just loads of little things that bugged me. Hyperspace bullets, not a fan.
Right.
It looked beautiful, but was quite stupid, like your stereotypical model. What else to say?
Did the milking of the beast?
That felt a little odd, but that sort of sits within my bit bad Marvel kind of gripe. It's formed part of that kind of issue for me. It was all like the first hour. There was a lot of things that were just a bit silly, and you can do that in moderation. But I really felt like they overdid it.
Yeah. What about some of the more contemporary humour, like the banter between Hux and Poe Dameron?
Oh, I hated that.
Oh, did you not like that? I like that.
I really like Hux, and they ruined him for me.
Okay.
They ruined him over the whole film, and now he is just. That's my main. Tell you what, actually, that's my main gripe with it. I love beyond all measure what they did with Kylo Ren's character. I just wish it hadn't come at the expense of every other villain in the film.
Yeah, especially
because nobody else comes out strong. Snoke, you know, I understand that people were kind of shocked by that. I was actually quite pleasantly surprised that they kind of dispatched him, because I didn't expect that. Certainly not in the second act of the movie. that really threw me for a loop, and I quite liked that I was thrown for a loop. But there was just so much, just silly stuff that I've just got no real time for. Let's say the hyperspace bullet stuff. It's stupid, and it raises loads of questions.
Yeah,
really quite significant questions, like why don't they just fire ships at each other throughout the whole saga? Why do they need lasers? Why do they need to pilot ships? If they just had one ship that was custom fitted with a hyperdrive and a droid, they could just fly one X-wing through the Death Star.
Yes.
Boom, done. Movie over, credits. I mean, obviously that's make for a good cinema, but you know.
Yeah, a lot of people have called that one out in the week since.
It's beautiful, so I understand why they've gone for it, because it's a stunning piece of cinema. It really does look great, but it doesn't make sense, and that's the problem I've got with a lot of it. Is there's loads of stuff that's really pretty or really impressive, but doesn't make sense and doesn't bear scrutiny.
There's some of that stuff that we need to sort of file under the suspension of disbelief heading, and it's
you can do that to a point. Yeah, I agree, but
like Han using hyperspace to get through the shields on Starkiller. It was that kind of level of trick, wasn't it?
Yeah. Also, I feel like nobody told Rian Johnson that he was doing episode 8 and not episode 9, because he wrapped up a lot of threads and didn't leave much for JJ to do anytime soon.
That was one of my biggest disappointments as well, was how it did feel like it had cut straight to the end and wrapped up all of these things. Now, if that's because they know what they're going to do,
then fine.
Then we're in for a huge treat. But if it's left Chris Terrio and JJ sort of out on a limb thinking, well, what do we do now? Because we've had all these wonderful elements to play with. So I still think there's a chance that they know what they're doing, and we're in for a massive surprise. I'm
sure they do. I'm sure they have an idea of what they're doing. Whether or not I'll go for it, I don't know. But here's the thing: I would much rather they do this and take risks with films that don't always land for me for the rest of my life, rather than do safe reboots every single time. Yeah. Much rather. Way more. Way happier with that than a safe reboot of Empire, which is not what we got.
Yeah, which is what everyone was afraid of.
What we did get was almost a Star Wars Infinity's what if Vader had overthrown the Emperor in Jedi earlier on with Kylo Ren.
Yeah, it is kind of an Elseworlds sort of mechanic, isn't it? And that is an interesting... I heard another podcast talking about how it subverts a lot of your expectations in that respect. And I think that is really clever, because I felt a lot off balance at the end of the movie, and I think that's why. And I've decided that's a good thing, because
I think it's fine.
I've been saying for ages I want to be surprised, I want to be shocked and challenged by Star Wars, and this is what that feels like.
I'm cool with being surprised. I'm cool despite the fact that we are kind of, a large chunk of our thread is speculation. I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised that none of the speculations were actually touched on.
I know, it makes you wonder what's going to happen now, doesn't it?
Well, I like that a lot, and I actually almost hope they don't do anything further with it. I kind of like that. I said this way back when, that I wanted Rey to be from nobody. I didn't want her to be, descendant of a powerful Force user or anything like that. I like the idea that the Force could manifest itself.
You landed quite a lot of predictions in this.
A lot of little things. Yeah, a lot of little things.
I think, Paul, you bagged a few as well, didn't you?
I'd be interested to go back and see what.
I can't remember what I bagged. That's all. I thought I did quite badly, actually.
No, I think
I felt like this at the time, Paul, as well. But I think you'd be surprised if we went back and listened. Obviously, we go through a fair few speculations and we revise things constantly. I think you'd be surprised how many we probably nailed.
Yeah.
DJ was a big one for me.
DJ
selling them out at the end.
Yeah, Yoda as well.
I was disappointed with DJ as well. And I know we've talked about it off air, Mark, about you're not big on the stutter.
No, I'm not.
Which is a bit silly, but at the same time, it is. But my issue with it was more that he represented at one point a really nice segment with him and Finn about moral grey,
Yeah.
And how it wasn't just as clear cut as good versus evil. And then they just went back to good versus evil at the end. So actually, I don't think it's as subversive and as smart as everybody thinks.
No.
I think actually it's actually quite safe in a lot of ways. It's just that they didn't do what we expected, so we're surprised.
Unless Ryan was subverting his subversion towards the end there, just to be really
that gets
meta.
A bit pretentious film school kind of.
Yeah.
You might well be doing that. Who knows?
Let's bring it back to the middle ground, quick.
Yeah. I'd say I would much rather, just to kind of be clear, because like I say, I know there are people who are using the argument that people who don't like bits about the film don't embrace it fully, don't like change. I'm sick of that argument. You should stop using it. It's lazy. And I will say, categorically, that I would much rather be surprised more often, even if that means I don't necessarily like it as much as I've liked previous films, if it means that we get challenged occasionally. But actually, like I say, I don't think Last Jedi is as smart and masterfully subversive as everybody makes out, because by the end we are just talking Empire versus Rebels.
Definitely bringing it back to the Rebels.
Yeah,
definitely bringing it back to that.
It's exactly that again. And there's a couple of other things that bug me. Phasma was wasted again.
Yeah.
And Akbar.
Yeah, that was
how the hell do you write him off like that?
I know, it's kind of, they threw that away, didn't they? Really?
Because stuff happens.
Yeah, it does. But
at least kind of acknowledge somebody in dialogue could just be like, "Oh man," including even Admiral Akbar. That would be something. But you don't even do that. You just say everybody dead. But LOL, soz bye, credits.
Yeah, even it went by so fast. I'm not sure I picked up on it in the first one.
No, I didn't. Initially, I didn't kind of register for me.
First viewing.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it dawned on me the following morning.
Yeah.
But it was weird, it's one of the weirdest experiences of cinema I've ever experienced. Me and Omer came out of the screening and stood by the pick and mix for 10 minutes, both going, did I like that? I don't know.
Yeah,
There was a lot of that for us.
I must admit, I was taking stock as I was watching it, and I think there was only about 10% of the movie that troubled me. It was enough to pull me out of the movie, though. It was like I thought, whoa, that was a decision that was made, and that's for sure. And it was enough for me to sort of miss a couple of seconds of the film and try and get back into it. All the while in the back of my mind, I was thinking, why did they do that with Leia? Or why is Luke drinking that green milk?
Yeah.
But I think the second time round, those things didn't leap out at me, didn't pull me out of the movie. So I was able to stay in the experience.
Well, it's like Tarkin in Rogue One, isn't it? You go in not knowing he's there, and then you go, "Oh wow, they did a CG Tarkin," and it jars because you're not, even though it makes perfect sense in the context of the timeline, you don't expect it to be there.
No, because you can't be there. Yeah.
The second time you go there, you're not thinking about, are they going to throw in any cameos? Because you know all the cameos, you've seen them all, so you're just evaluating it purely on face value.
Yeah. So, bottom line, Rob, you're gonna go see this again in theatres?
I'm sure I will. I'm not. This is the first one out of the 3 that they've done so far where I'm not in any desperate rush to go and see it a second time.
Right.
But that's not to say, like I say, it's not to say I didn't like it. If things had panned out differently, and you were kind of if you were to ask me now, I would sooner go and see Last Jedi again before I saw Force Awakens a second time.
Right.
Because, like I say, of the 2 films, I thought Last Jedi was superior.
Really? Okay.
They did. They did a great job with Kylo, developing him further. I was way more into Rey in Last Jedi than I was in Force Awakens, because she actually had depth. She had character. She wasn't just this eye-rolling snark machine who was brilliant at everything.
Yeah.
She actually had some, she had some flaws. She was a little bit kind of overeager and idealistic, and Luke would sort of check her, and there was almost like this kind of vague buddy cop, like the sort of grizzled veteran versus the fresh-faced rookie.
Some of that was an echo of Empire, wasn't it? Especially with her relationship with Luke being a bit like his relationship with Yoda, and how there's some hubris in there that kind of, it was almost threatening his ability to learn anything.
But that's this is what I wanted from Force Awakens. We actually got we actually saw the obstacles to Rey's advancement that came from her own character, rather than just like I say, just no there was nothing. There was stuff in her way. There was things that could threaten her position, like the dark side tree that she went to straight away, that sort of thing. We actually saw kind of the side effects of that stuff, as opposed to, like I say, just being this kind of eye-rolling snark machine who's got an answer for everything. Everybody likes her instantly. She had to build a rapport with a character for the first time in some time. And, I bought into it. I enjoyed that side of the character way, way more in Last Jedi because of that.
I'm looking forward to seeing it again to sort of explore some of that stuff a little bit more.
Yeah.
Without the sort of trying to get used to where I am in this film and try and orientate myself to being in a new Star Wars movie and then sort of studying the characters a bit more.
Yeah, let's say the general feeling on it is I like it a lot. I don't love it. I don't understand why people are calling it masterful and subversive and super smart, because a lot of it's not, and it's kind of, there's a lot of pretense in it that kind of masks that. I think a lot of the stuff doesn't make sense, but looks nice. Like I say, the Leia thing was a very impressive shot, but didn't make any sense at all. The shot of the Resistance bomber doesn't make sense. Unless, were those bombs magnetized, or did they just have gravity in space because reasons?
I read somewhere they're magnetized.
Okay. Was that a retcon, or did that come from proper?
No, I'll have to dig it out again, but
that's fine.
I saw somewhere that they had magnetic shells on them.
Okay, you're not on trial, don't worry. That's the question.
One silly question is, with a situation like that, why isn't it voice controlled? Why have you still got this little press button module?
For real.
Yeah.
I actually found myself quite liking Holdo's character. I know a lot of people don't like her, but
I loved her. I really liked her a lot.
I really liked her. She was a little bit stupid in that she didn't tell Poe the plan, which I thought was a perfectly valid criticism. Let's withhold information from the guy who, what was it? How did I see it described on Twitter? Let's withhold information from the guy who is proven to be reckless when you don't tell him something.
Yeah,
that works out. That's going to work out well.
That was a no-win situation, though. He's reckless even if he does know something.
Yeah, but I think that there was.
He knows there's a plan.
There was probably some hesitation about his ability to get on board with, the rules. Like we saw,
he'll make his own plan of your plan.
It's the bomb. It's the bomber thing, the bomber run, isn't it? Where Leia said there was a lot of heroes there, but there were no leaders. So I think they felt like perhaps keeping him in the dark.
Then make it clear that it's a test and that he failed, rather than just like stunning him and then waking him up after he can't do anything about it.
Well, that's because maybe they underestimated what his reaction would be, and his reaction was to become a leader and become almost to lead almost like a miniature coup. And maybe they didn't expect him to step up to that. They expected a reaction, but not that one. Maybe. So I think these are the things that when we get into the movie and we start examining it on a character by character basis, like what is this character's arc, and you watch the film with that in mind. Yeah, these things they will either click together nicely, like the OT,
or they will stay. Well, they'll either click together nicely, they'll jar horribly, or nothing will change.
Yes,
and that's my kind of thing on it. Is this this is why I'm not kind of subscribing to the whole watch it twice or your opinion doesn't matter crowd that seems to be increasingly vocal and annoying, because the problems I have with the movie, you can't solve them with a second viewing. You can, maybe they bother you less, but they're not going to be solved because they're in the film.
Well, this is the thing. When we did the roundtable at the weekend, we were encouraging a lot of the people that had only seen it once, that weren't crazy about it, to see it a second time.
That's fine.
Really just for them. And I needed it.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
I needed it. And I know it doesn't mean that anything's going to change, because that stuff's still the same structure, but it does mean, I think, if you can stay in a film and you're not being pulled out by these moments, like when I watched the prequels, Phantom Menace, I was pulled out by little things, even like Ewan McGregor's wig, and the fact that he'd put on like 10 pounds because he was making Rogue Trader, and I thought, whoa, well, that's a pickup, and that just took me out of the movie for a moment, and a film shouldn't do that.
No. So I will say, as a film experience, it was one of the most engaging experiences I've ever had, because I was completely, mesmerized the whole way through about what would happen next, especially because they threw so many curveballs. It was just a shame that, like I say, it just had. I mean, I could go deeper on it, but I had some issues with the way the villains were treated. I had some issues with, as I say, the Superman Leia was daft, and like I say, I've not known anybody who said that's a good scene.
I've heard it called Carrie Poppins.
Yeah, because beyond the visual kind of appreciation, because it is very striking visually, but it just doesn't make sense, and it raises a lot more questions. Like, for example, at the end of Rogue One, when Darth Vader's standing watching the Tantive 4 fly off, why doesn't he just go, whoop, dive into space, grab the Tantive, because he can survive out there longer than Leia can, because he's got machinery and stuff.
Yeah.
So why doesn't he just hook himself onto the back of the Tantive and wait for the Star Destroyer to catch up?
This is the problem when you view these things like that, like with the hyperspace, like jump that ship to hyperspace through the Death Star and destroy it. It's when you consider that these are options that have always been on the table to be discussed, and they're not decisions like Holdo's decision was made really out of desperation. I'm not sure that was Plan A. Now,
no, I'm sure it wasn't. But
she needed to stay with that ship for a reason, but I'm sure it wasn't to hyperspace through the supremacy.
No.
She was pushed to that.
Why has nobody ever thought of that in the 1,000 generations of hyperspace before that?
Yeah, I mean, maybe they have, but this is the first time we're seeing it. So sometimes you do have to give the film, the story, a little bit of leeway and accept it for what it is. It's when these things move at the speed of plot, and then you have to give them a free pass. Because they can't build. No, but you can't build. I mean, in order to accept it, you have to. You don't have to accept it.
Yeah. So,
but in order for that to work for you, you have to give it a free pass and say, well, this is just the first time. This might have happened once in every battle. Yeah. This might have been Lando's move at the Battle of Tanab, for all we know. And you don't know whether or not it's possible to survive that thing, because
I was going to say, presumably it's not Lando's maneuver at the Battle of Tanab, because we still see him in Jedi. I take your point.
Han and Rey hyper jump through a Raftar in The Force Awakens, and they live to tell that tale. And then him and Chewie hyper jump through the shields on Starkiller, and they learn. I was making a hybrid Skykiller to make landfall there. So. There are examples of it being used and surviving. So maybe there's a way to do it and live. But she deliberately needed to, do you see what I mean? Where you have to sort of develop some headcanon to give these things a free pass. If you're of that mindset where you're willing to, sometimes a film doesn't earn that from you.
Yeah.
There's sometimes they're guilty of too many sins where you just think, no, I'm not going to let you have that.
Yeah, that's pretty much, like I say, there was another couple of things about it, little things like I felt I was hoping for, and this is kind of down to expectation and, deviation from it, but what I was really hoping for as a theme was that there would be more moral grey, and it wasn't just as simple as, all the way good versus all the way bad. And by the end, it was just back to square one in that respect. There was no advancement in thinking there.
Right.
I didn't feel like we actually, advanced our understanding of what the Force is and how the galaxy works. And like I say, that was why I was really happy that had that whole exchange with DJ and Finn. I thought that was the start of it. Right. And actually, that didn't happen at all. Although, I mean, DJ might turn up in episode 9 and do a Lando. But, we don't know yet.
Let's hope not. I really didn't care for that character so much.
Yeah. I don't mean literally.
Yeah.
Especially not being, if they just recast him as Billy D, that would be weird.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing about this film is we're not left the way we were left at the end of Empire either, are we? We're not left with like a massive cliffhanger.
Kind of. I mean, that we're left with the resistance bit slightly on the back foot.
Yeah.
But that was another thing. It's a middle trilogy movie, and the stakes haven't really changed that drastically. No. The First Order's lost their big ship and their big leader. There's one bloke who's any threat to them, which is Kylo Ren. Everybody else just fizzled out. Like I say, Hux, so disappointing. I knew he was a bootlicker in Force Awakens, but I always would hope at least that he was a bit more authoritative in public than then he just within 10 minutes of the movie he was making stupid faces, and that was his entire role for the rest of the film. It was just such a disappointment.
I've heard it referred to as the Marcus Brodying of Hux. By the time you get to Last Crusade in Empire, Brody's become like this joke. Yeah. And that always made me feel quite sad. But I can't say that I had much time for Hux in The Force Awakens. I thought that I really liked Donald Gleason as an actor, but I felt that he was always playing to the cheap seats in The Force Awakens, really like playing to the back row. And in this movie, I thought even though there was more comedy in his performance, it was a little bit more nuanced, and I enjoyed it much more than I did TFA, because in TFA I just thought he was like this moustache twirling bad guy.
Yeah.
Here I know
I'm on the same page as you. I think he was a lackey, but he had his story responsibility was to be that character and be like when he wasn't being arch to laugh at. He was there for us to laugh at.
I say just that for me was just a little bit, a little too heavy on the comedy side for him. Not to the point where none of this is to the point where I hate the movie.
No,
this is the thing. It's just these are the things that stop it from being in my top, in the top couple, or dare I say the top one ever. Just because it doesn't, I didn't have these problems with Empire the first time I watched them. Admittedly, I was a kid, but I didn't even have these problems with.
Some people did, though. Apparently, that's the way history is.
So I keep hearing, but I've never seen any evidence either way, so I don't know.
No, I'm hearing a lot from people that the audiences came out questioning, and they were left reeling by the "I am your father" reveal. Spoilers.
Yeah, that's understandable. That's quite significant.
And so I think that some people just didn't want the Saturday morning matinee movie that they were expecting to become this Heart of Darkness type character study. But now it's most people's favourite movie. This will go the same way. Well, I hope it does.
I don't know. I feel like that's the polar opposite effect of the people who are saying it's the worst movie they've ever seen. Yeah, it's just the same
hyperbole.
It's the same hyperbole, and it's the same almost like religious devotion, just manifested in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
For me, like, it's the greatest movie I've ever seen. No, I don't. Maybe it is, but I feel like a lot of people are reaching for it. If people are really desperate for it to be, for them to, they're really. I've seen people like that sort of. They word it in a way that suggests that they want it to be. They're desperate for it to be good. They're desperate. It's not even that. They're desperate to like it, so they keep going until they like it. It's like Stockholm syndrome. It sounds like, It sounds like I say, it just sounds like religious kind of ideology. It sounds like, the movie moves in mysterious ways, all glory unto the movie.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that's not the case. And
I'm sure projecting a little bit. I realise, because I'm kind of assuming that's the case. I don't know, but that's how it feels, and I hope that's not the case.
As we get more and more familiar with it, I'm sure our positions are going to change. Everyone's position is going to change slightly, and one thing's for sure: by the time we get to this film on home video and do an audio commentary, it's going to be really interesting. I think. Sure. Right, thank you for sharing your insights on that movie, Rob. It's good to get your points down as well. Should we get into some of this YouTube feedback, and then I want to really dive into some of this listener comm stuff this week. So we've got Paul. Did you want to take Diego's message from YouTube this week?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, guys, I am sorry to admit that I'm disappointed by TLJ. I was so ready to love it, and I have to say it's not because I wasn't given what I wanted. I was very open to whatever surprise Ryan had in store for me. Thing is, there wasn't any. Revelations in the Force, race parentage, Snoke, race training, open brackets, and Kylo. Wasn't he supposed to complete his as well? Close bracket. I feel so frustrated. The humour didn't even bother me, well, apart from the opening Poe Huck sketch. But I'm left with the impression that the major plot points have fallen very short. Maybe I'll try a second viewing. Which kind of goes along with what a lot of other people,
Yeah,
exactly. Many other people are, an area they're in. So
there's some mix and match in there, because there are a few things in there that, Diego's saying he was bothered by the Poe Huck's interaction.
He wasn't. He was the opposite. That's the only thing that the humour that didn't bother him, from what I was reading.
The humour. He says the humour didn't bother me. Apart from so it did bother him. The Hux Poe interaction.
No. The humour didn't bother him apart from that. Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Sorry, you're right.
So he's saying the humour didn't bother him. So
except for
the Poe Hux interaction, which I really liked. So it is a bit like a pick and mix thing, this, isn't it? You can like certain parts of it and dislike others.
As divisive as this film is, it's being divisive over so many different issues. It's quite fun.
Yeah. It's not like there's one thing. I mean, Carrie Poppins is probably the main thing that's upsetting a lot of people. But
it's almost like everybody has different opinions about this movie, and it's not just as simple as Disney shills versus people who hate change.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not as simple.
It's almost like that, isn't it?
It's not like Ryan got any. It's not like Ryan got any one thing wrong. It was a combination of disparate elements that come together to affect different people in different ways. Yeah. And I'll say you get that anywhere. That's why some people, like if I talk to Nathan Roberts about Attack of the Clones, he loves it. He freely admits it's not one of the best Star Wars movies, but it's one that he really enjoys watching a lot. And it's one that I enjoy watching the least. And I tried it after this film came out. I went back and I listened to a bunch of old ones.
Yeah, I think the thing about the sort of your preference on the movies, and my friend Brad puts it very eloquently. When people ask him his favourite movies, he sort of in his head he fills in, we're taking Star Wars as a given, yeah. So he doesn't even factor that into his equation because they're on a completely different plane in his head in terms of where they rank overall, and within the Star Wars films themselves, they have their own order of things.
Well, that's a bit like yours, Paul. When we stack ranked last week, you put A New Hope to one side and said, "Well, that's on its own. That's
you don't include that. No.
Untouchable. I'll stack rank the rest, but this goes without saying it's on
Everybody's
its own.
Got their own systems.
Yeah, I personally put them all on their own and then negate the entire process.
I broke the system.
I'm a saboteur. All right, let's Diego. I hope you do go for a second viewing, just because I would really like to see what your thoughts are after that, and whether or not these things that bugged you before bugged you again. Because I found the opposite to be true personally, and I would be interested to get more information from other people on how they're growing to either love or lose interest in this film. All right, Autobahn Kenobi. Autobahn Kenobi says, haven't listened to your reactions yet, but I loved it. Seen it twice so far, contains some of the most jaw-dropping Star Wars sequences in the history of the franchise, the most beautiful of the films. Not a perfect movie. Some of the Canto Bight stuff didn't work for me. I'm hearing that a lot too. But I think after watching it again, it's a better movie than The Force Awakens. The fan backlash has me concerned, though. I hope Ryan doesn't lose his trilogy over it. That would be a real shame, because we need more films in Star Wars that takes risks like this one did. More, please.
He won't lose his trilogy over this. Disney saw this before we did. Lucasfilm saw this before we did. Mm-hmm. They must have known that there were parts of that movie that would divide fandom. Because if they didn't, they're mad. Yes. And I don't think they are.
Yeah, and I would imagine they probably divided the execs as well when they saw some of this stuff.
Entirely possible.
And so it's interesting that they haven't gotten involved and tinkered in any way to sort of dial that stuff back. Unless they did. Yeah. Unless Luke milked that entire herd of sirens. And they said, can we trim it back to one?
Yeah, can we not take the risk of getting a 15?
The integrity of my vision. This movie's over.
Those are, I'm kind of headcanoning it that they're moofs. I'm sure they're not. They're probably in the visual dictionary named.
They are. I can look at that. I can get that for you right now because I have.
Cool. Okay.
Like any good Star Wars fan, I have the visual dictionary right next to me.
I'm not buying mine either this side of Christmas, just in case, because that's the kind of thing I could see somebody getting me as a Christmas present. So I'm holding up for now. And it's already started to drop in price here and there. So I think by the time Christmas comes and goes, I might be able to get it for a song.
Yeah, I picked it up for pennies on Amazon. It was in one of their little sales.
I think that Lucasfilm had already seen this movie, and if they didn't think that some stuff would divide fandom, they don't spend enough time online. But at the same time, they spend just the right amount of time online, because I'd spend less if I could, especially recently.
Yeah,
they're
called Thala sirens, by the way.
Sirens, okay. Well, sirens as in the kind of thing that are meant to lure ships to pass by.
Indeed.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing that as a hard sell, personally.
Yeah, well, their milkshake brings all the ships to the yard, and that's all they can say.
They're like,
that's how Luke crashed. He was just flying by, and he went, "Oh, milkshake."
Yeah. Well, I wonder if they're moofs.
There's a T-shirt right there. Yeah, nice one. Autobahn Kenobi. I'm glad you're full of praise. Now there's two of our regular commenters there from YouTube, coming from completely different positions, or largely different positions at least. Rob, were you aware that Aunt Vesuvi got a question on the Star Wars show asked to the cast of The Last Jedi? She's big time.
Yeah, I didn't realise that, no.
Yeah, they pitched her question to Adam Driver and Daisy Ridley.
That's awesome. I'm a bit jealous, to be honest. I would have I would have wanted to ask immediately afterwards whether or not Adam Driver really had an 8-pack, because, man, that guy is shredded like...
stacked, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. Ridiculous.
Ex-Marine.
That's
it.
Yeah, he looks bigger without a shirt on than he does with a shirt on.
Well, it's because of that lady cut that he wears normally.
Yeah, but then that's
His
loose.
His clothing's very feminine.
Yeah, maybe that's it. I don't know. But I say, you just saw him and like, good Lord, those, biceps aren't supposed to be that size, are they? I mean, I'm telling people more than they'd care to know about me, I'm sure. But, it was...
Put an image of yourself out there with Photoshop, old chap.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, get a picture of Jeremy.
Use Jeremy's picture.
I'm sure Rob Phillips is already on putting my head on Kylo's body, so...
that goes. Rob, did you want to take Vesuvi's question this week? Well, not question,
sure.
but comment from YouTube this week.
Yeah, sure. So Aunt Vesuvi writes, thanks for mentioning my name yet again and for highlighting my featured question from the Star Wars show. I loved my initial screening of The Last Jedi, as did the entire cinema, as far as I could tell from their reactions during the flick, and thoughtful comments overheard while exiting. As a matter of fact, I've seen it 5 times as of today, and plan on seeing it many more times. Where did I get? Sorry. Did I see some bits I would have changed or omitted? Of course, but it's still stellar, and it enriched my headcanon far beyond my wildest expectations. This movie, already great, will improve even more with time, just like wine. To address General Organa's unexpected zero-gravity demonstration of telekinesis, in Return of the Jedi, on Endor, Luke said to her, "You're wrong, Leia. You have that power too. In time, you'll learn to use it as I have." That's what I heard in my head as her freezing body was pulled back to the damaged Raddus. Inspired tears to roll down my cheeks. The unfathomably eloquent visual poetry made even more so in the light of Carrie Fisher's untimely passing shortly after this footage was shot. This worked on the 49-year-old me, the one who has lived, lost, and ponders realities. And it worked on the 8-year-old me, the one who weighed ideals and fantasized improbabilities as well as possibilities. On Yoda's appearance, I think it could have been vastly improved by lightening the image, reducing the contrast, and perhaps making it a tad more transparent. Because to me, he didn't always look luminous and ethereal enough the way previous Force ghosts have. I agree with Mark that my favourite of favourite moments might have been R2-D2 replaying the holographic message that started Luke on his hero's journey. I actually hoped, immediately after Fisher's death, that they might find a way to use it in Episode 9, but they read my mind and used it in a more apt way earlier than expected. Cheers to Mark, Paul, and all of the Commonwealth.
That's wonderful. That might be the most eloquent comment we've ever had.
That was nice, that.
And expertly read as well, Rob. What a wonderful, thoughtful, and well-written comment. It's things like this that make me wonder if I judged some of these elements a little bit too harshly. But Vesuvi and I are on the same page with the Yoda of it all. I felt that he didn't look ethereal enough, but I'll certainly be considering some of these things.
Never considered it really while I was watching it.
Did you not?
No, I think I was just kind of baffled by the ability to summon lightning storms. I was already that was kind of holding my attention more than anything else, so I wasn't really paying attention to the the visuals.
That's one of those moments that pulled me out for a split second as well.
Yeah.
Even though I was pulled right in by the way Luke greeted him, and then he greeted Luke, and knowing that Luke's sort of been unplugged for a while from the Force, so knowing that kind of been some time since those two had interacted was kind of sweet. I just wish we'd got less of the impish Yoda and more Jedi Master Yoda.
Yeah, there's one thing about that Yoda scene that bugs me, which is, obviously he says something to the effect of Rey has everything that she needs in terms of learnings about the Force, and then she's got the books.
Yeah.
So what did he actually teach her?
Luke, only taught her 2 out of the 3 lessons that he.
What did he actually teach her? Because she was kind of not ridiculing him, but like she was kind of dismissively talking about the Force as getting to do cool stuff and lifting rocks, and he said it's much more than that. And then by the end of the film, she goes lifting rocks.
Yeah,
it's like, well, was she? Is that their kind of way of saying she was right, and actually Luke didn't teach her anything? Is that that threw me a bit? Kind of left me a bit confused.
That's another one of those things that I need to have at the forefront of my mind on the next viewing, I think, to try and
that's the trouble, isn't it?
Sort of get all these things neatly put away so that I fully understand them, and I've got my mind wrapped around them. But that's going to take some time, I think, because this movie is, if nothing else, it's dense.
Vesuvi, thank you so much for continuing. Now you've hit the big time and you're on the Star Wars show. Thank you so much for still taking the time to slumming it with us. It's awesome to have your comments over there on YouTube. So thank you so much for that. All right, let's move into reviews. We've only got one this week. Don't forget, this review is just genuine and straight up, and we really do appreciate it. But if you did want to have some fun with it, you can take advantage of what we call our Ron Burgundy policy, which means whatever you write in a five-star review, we're going to read verbatim. So if you want to promote something like your own podcast or a blog, then that's where to do it, as long as it's clean, because after all, family show and all that. Paul, did you want to take this 5-star review?
This is from the Bow Tie Bubble Guy. Bow Tie Fighter Bubble Guy, maybe?
Yeah, why not?
5 stars. This is a fun podcast. These guys have a great time talking about the greatest movie franchise in history, and I'm so glad I found it. Short, succinct, to the point. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, wonderful. Great stuff. Thank you so much. Nice to have a sincere review.
Another one?
I only got the one from you this week, and a chart position for the toy box you sent through.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. I've got mixed up with one that was sent to a different Commonwealth podcast. My bad.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, thanks for letting everyone know that everyone else gets more feedback.
No, they get some. They don't get as many. I don't know. I'd have to run the numbers, but I don't know off the top of my head who gets what. I know most of the podcasts get at least something.
Good. That's about as vague as you meant it, I'm sure. All right, let's move into.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's best I've got as well.
Let's move into listener comms. So you can send your questions and comments to us via Twitter or Facebook, or send us an email to talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com, or as many people did this week, send us a voicemail in the form of an MP3. Just use your voice recorder on your iPhone, fire us the file, we'll do the rest. Dave Donovan sent us our first message this week. He says, "What to say? 100 episodes. Thank you, fine gentlemen, and you especially, Mark, for the wonderful work and giving us this brilliant community. To thousands more. May the force be with you, Dave." Now, I'm sure he doesn't mean to exclude anybody, but I think what Dave means is I do the daily as well. And
Mark, let's be fair. You work way harder than any of the rest of us at building this community, so it's only fair fair that you get singled out as
I would argue
worthy of particular mention.
The community built itself. I simply started the Facebook page, but the community has certainly built itself, and it's looking after itself wonderfully. So I'm glad that there is a theme to a lot of this evening's feedback and emails.
It's amazing.
No, not
so is that all, it's all about you, yeah?
It wasn't initially, but after several hours editing, especially with these audio files, I had to do quite a lot
100 episodes of Talk Mark Wars.
And he can write what he wants in the show notes.
Star Wars. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Mark, should we just call it a night and
just leave me to it? No, I got the daily. I got the daily for that.
Oh, you're going to leave me by myself? What the hell? This is a weird twist.
I'm sure you'll be fine.
You rhymed me.
Right, we've got a selection of voicemails this week, and this first one is from our dear friend Carlos Candido.
TSW 100. Congratulations, Mark, Paul, Rob, and yes, even you, Naked Steve. Congratulations on 100 episodes.
I'm third now.
You really make this thing that we do special. Thank you so much. Enjoy the show. And here's to 100 more. Cheers. And happy Yuletide greetings.
Such a cool guy.
Thank you, sir. It's lovely.
Thank you,
Carlos. Slightly less than now that I've been relegated to third, but
you didn't even get the hand.
I got a dramatic pause, as if he was trying to remember my bloody name.
Like a Shakespearean bear there, Rob, with your dramatic pause.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Right, who wants to take Jared McIntyre's email? Rob?
You do.
Rob? No, I've just done one. I've just done Dave's.
Paul, go ahead. I've got some epics to read later on.
All right. Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. Right, from Jared McIntyre. Excuse me. Bit of a cold, but there you go. Right, congrats on the 100th episode. I stumbled across Talk Star Wars when the episodes were in the mid-30s. So that's the same as my age. And since then, this podcast has become my go-to source for Star Wars content. recently my only podcast for Star Wars content. After taking the plunge to become a VIP, Talk Star Wars is now part of my daily routine. There's something special about the Talk Star Wars ensemble. More than any other show out there, this group is more excited about the what if rather than the what is. Through your diverse perspectives, the Talk Star Wars crew reflects the community as a whole. Even those of us on the different continents feel we're very included in the show camaraderie. Also, you all are downright hilarious. It's only not you, Rob. It's only a matter of time before this podcast conquers all 7 continents and moves on to other planets. That's our plan. Yes. Well done, Mrs. P.
Somebody just unlocked you, Paul.
Yeah, I've been in my car all night. Here's to 100 more. Jared McIntyre, Republic Ambassador.
Yes. Now we're talking.
What's Mrs. P?
Mrs. P,
Rob.
Mark, Rob, Steve and Paul. It's a little nickname that we've acquired along the line. Yeah.
And I'm the only one that actually stands out there. That's really cool.
Exactly.
That's good. Well, the other option would be Mr. PS. That's too easily abused.
Yeah.
He's the Republic ambassador. I like this.
He is. No, that's brilliant. Jared,
now I can't remember if that's me or Cast.
or pick one. There's like
or
dozens.
Rob or Williams.
Yeah. All of your clones.
Well, I think TSW, I think it's either me or Mr. Cast.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume it's Cast because, let's be fair. But he'd be my pick.
This was, I was putting these show notes together, and every time I got one of these little emails from people that reached out to sort of tell us how much they appreciate what we do, I was getting really quite weepy. I think I'm just becoming a girl the older I get, or a baby. I'm not sure which it is. Probably a baby.
It's 2017, you can probably be either.
Baby girl.
Be a baby girl.
Yeah, there you go.
Why not? Yeah, that's good.
Diversify.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Jared. So we're going to move over now to Daniel Thorpe's message. This came from Twitter. So Daniel said, I just started your reaction podcast, and your initial reaction is exactly what I had. I got home about 3:30 a.m. and I could not let my mind rest. I came out from the film a little gutted by what I had seen. Second viewing was much better. I still have issues with some of the comedy aspects, but they didn't bug me as much the second time around. I'm still processing the whole film. I don't think we have seen the last of Snoke. I think this is his last test for Kylo, and he failed him. If Snoke really has gone, I think it's a waste. I was enjoying his character. Daniel has been really active this past week since the movie came out. We've been bouncing things backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty much on the same page with this film, and that's why I've been that's why I've been so positive about multiple viewings of this film, not for people to sort of try and beat I know this wasn't
Mark, not on trial.
Yeah, no, this is not what you were
I didn't even mean you when I was talking about it. Don't worry.
I'm not trying to get people to convince themselves that this film is good. I'm just hoping the film gets out of their way and allows them to access the story. And I think the first viewing, we might as well write it off, because there will be things in there that do slap you in the face and gets your attention.
Sure.
But, after a while, I think you can kind of settle into it. I hope at least that you can settle into it and let it wash over you.
Definitely relate to that 3:30 a.m. feeling, because I had the same thing. And actually, I know John Paul did as well, because I got a message from him at about 4:00 in the morning saying, "How am I meant to sleep after that?" To give you an idea of how that landed, I was awake, so I was having the similar issue. My brain was kind of desperate to process what I'd just seen and kind of reconcile it in my head. And I got there the following morning, which was helpful.
Yeah, just as it's time to get up and go to work.
Yeah, I actually had the rest of the week off because I had a feeling a midnight showing. Yeah, I had a feeling the midnight showing would give me the kind of basically the feeling of a hangover with none of the vomiting
and none of the fun bits like leading up to.
No, there was plenty of fun bits. Popcorn and drink and Star Wars. What more could you ask for?
No, that's everything. That's all the major food groups right there. All right, we've got a message from Steve Kirk over at the San Diego Sabres podcast.
Oh, nice.
It's a lengthy one, so we can sort of take a breather and let Steve have the stage with his beautifully produced voice message. So this is Steve Kirk from San Diego Sabres.
Hi there, Mark, Rob, Paul, and Steven, and all the TSW fans. This is Steve from the San Diego Sabres radio podcast. So, The Last Jedi. Well, let me jump into my reactions here by going full circle and talking about the title. When the title was announced, we all agonized over if the word Jedi was singular or plural, especially given the foreign translations. Then Ryan came out and said, no, Luke is the last Jedi, so it's singular, of course. Well, in the most brilliant way, Luke himself answered the question in his fight with Kylo, where he says, if I die, I will not be the last Jedi. What a masterful conclusion to this debate. Yes, Luke is, or was, the last Jedi. But now the Jedi Master himself has acknowledged there will be more, by his own decision. Right, okay, so obviously there's been some division on the movie itself. Now here's the irony of all this. When The Force Awakens came out, people complained, rather loudly, that JJ played it too safe, and they wanted Ryan to take more risks. Well, sure enough, that's what we got. I guess this just goes to prove you can't satisfy all the people all the time, and I'm glad Ryan isn't trying to. Let's remember, Empire Strikes Back had a lot of poor reviews at first also. I think, however, The Last Jedi has some long legs to it. We're going to appreciate it even more in time, and perhaps even more so in context when the trilogy is finally completed. Sure, we're left with a lot of questions, but I think a good movie like this will ask as many new questions as it does answer the old ones. What we do see, however, is something I'm really starting to fall in love with Ryan over. He's really demonstrating what a true Star Wars fan he is himself. The little things he's put in, made tiebacks to, brought back from legends and canonized. These links and tiebacks are the things we ourselves would try to put in if we were running the movie. It all just warms the heart. Let's start with a couple links back to Battlefront 2. First was the opening shot of the film. The camera pans down to see the Raddus in orbit over Dakar as the Resistance evacs their base. This is the exact ending shot from Battlefront 2's DLC that came out the week of the film's release. Second, there's a quick shot inside Luke's hut. We've all latched on to that red crystal, wondering what that might be. But immediately after is a few frames showing a compass. I believe that's the compass that Luke recovers from Palpatine's observatory on the planet Pilio in the game's story. Now, of course, maybe Lucas asked him to slide these in there, sure. But whatever the case, it further cements Battlefront 2 as being canon, which having a video game become canon has been something many of us fans have longed for many years. The other major, but somewhat obscure thing he did for fan appreciation is when DJ, Rose, and Finn board Snoke's ship. We have that teaser shot of the Imperial Clothes Iron. This is none other than an homage to one of the first Star Wars fan films ever, Hardware Wars. Ryan, in fact, confirmed this just a few days ago. I caught it in my first viewing and had to point it out to my younger friends, who are now committed to seeing Hardware Wars. I don't think it's arguable that some of the best and most emotional scenes in the movie are the reunion scenes. Luke with R2 and R2's dirty trick with the old Leia holo projection, and then the reunion between Luke and Leia, the scene we all prayed would happen. That was one of the most tear-filled moments for me, even in my third viewing. It's just so poignant. One other component of the film that has people debating is the use of humor. Myself, I was generally okay with most of it. Some of the jokes were more modern, if you will, not classic Star Wars writing. As we're trying to move a franchise forward and also capture the new generation of fans, perhaps that's appropriate and okay. Even so, why not simply enjoy it? It definitely helps lighten an otherwise dark and desperate film where all the best laid plans by our protagonists seem to fail. I know we've started asking ourselves if Luke will come back as Force Ghost Luke in JJ number 9. While I prefer to avoid predictions, I think there's at least one piece of evidence which heavily supports it being likely. Luke promised Rey he would teach her 3 lessons. He only taught her 2. Couple that together with Yoda, I believe, convincing Luke to build a bridge and get over himself, leading to him passing into the Force, much the same way Obi-Wan did in A New Hope. It puts him in a position to be better enabled to train Rey, just as Obi-Wan was for Luke. Obviously, there's no guarantees, but it's a perfect setup for JJ to take advantage of at least. Now, of course, no movie is perfect, nor did I expect this one to be. We've all talked about the Space Leia scene already, right? Possibly not the best execution. However, let's look at it more objectively. I feel the intent of the scene was to demonstrate that Leia had real Force abilities. Perhaps we can overlook the execution and simply appreciate that the intent was served. It was a necessary piece to demonstrate for later scenes in the movie to work properly. So in general, I can accept this scene and move on. I am a bit disappointed in Snoke leaving us so soon. I was hoping for more about him. I even feel like Ryan said that while we wouldn't be delving deep into his history, we would find out at least a little bit more about him. But I have to imagine Lucasfilm wants some of these types of threads left loose on purpose so that they can explore them further later on in books and comics, for example. Perhaps there's plans for a Snoke novel in the future. We'll have to wait and see. But certainly that's territory ripe to be explored still. And to be honest, we'll get more out of a novel on Snoke than we would from a few moments of dialogue on screen. Now, as you know, I co-run San Diego Sabers, and we practice real-life, mixed martial arts-based lightsaber combat. So, as a saber combat guy, it's my duty to point out a couple of editing mistakes I noticed in some lightsaber sequences. Both Rey and Kylo had scenes where they were holding their sabers in a reverse grip. Then there would be a cut to a new angle. But now suddenly, they're holding their blades in a forward grip. Sounds minor, right? Yeah, maybe it is. And I doubt many other people even noticed. But this is akin to people in the video production industry. They can see drop frames in a video that others don't notice. Right, so let me wrap this up by talking about the ending scene. As many have noted, Rian has created a non-traditional Star Wars film, and this end scene is a perfect illustration. Here we have this wide-eyed boy, who's Force-sensitive, by the way. He has Rose's resistance ring. He's looking wistfully up to the stars. This boy embodies a new hope. Force children are still being born. Brooms are still being used as lightsabers. The rebellion lives on. Right, that's me done then. I'm looking forward to all the conversations we're going to have about this movie for all time now. Let me wish all of you fine gents that talk Star Wars a very happy Christmas, a happy New Year's, and may the Force be with you.
And with you.
What a top guy. That's an awesome message.
It was certainly an epic.
Some great insights in there, I think. Especially,
I was really interested with the lightsaber stuff.
Yeah, because I did see that after I heard Steve's message. I did see some of the things he was talking about.
Yeah, there's a couple of things in his message that I didn't agree with, but you know, they're not like significantly major things. But he did fall on this. I've had enough of this argument. People criticising JJ because he made Force Awakens too safe are the same people who are criticising Last Jedi for being different. I don't think they're the same people. And I think it's a bit of a fallacy to kind of assume they are.
There's probably some, in the Venn diagram, there's probably some crossover, but
I find it very hard to believe it's a circle.
Yeah, I'm sure they're not mutually exclusive positions.
Absolutely not, but I just think that's a very convenient... There's a lot of... I'm not accusing Steve of doing this, but I've noticed this a lot. There's a lot of attempts to rationalize, people can't really not like this film. There must be something nefarious to it. There must be people manipulating Rotten Tomatoes. Again, it probably happens, but it's not everybody. It's possible that some people like this and some people don't, and that's okay. And I've just got weary of this argument, this constant attempt by both sides of the vocal end to discredit the other's point of view.
Yeah,
that's not how opinions work.
I would edit your statement slightly, and I might in post to say there are people that don't like people that like this movie, and then there are people that are wrong. The power of the edit. There we go.
Yeah, the power of the edit. Well, I can always be there to tell people what really happened.
Yeah, with your sandwich board, walking around the street with your loud hailer.
He's lost it.
He's finally cracked. That's some great stuff. Oh, Steve's joined us.
Oh, hello.
Hello, Steve. You okay, mate?
Yeah, you guys all right?
Yeah. We're just wading through some listener comms, actually, old chap. So you've come in at just the right time.
Ah, interesting. I'm not naked. I'm sorry.
Oh, you
I'll let everyone down.
See you later, guys.
I'm fully clothed.
This podcast is over. Do you want to give you some time to disrobe, or are you just going to break union rules? All right, Steve. While you get settled in,
Rob, you need a lozenge.
Paul, would you like to take Ian Jolliffe's written question, because we also have an audio clip in a moment?
Okie dokie. I've been on mute a lot. You've obviously seen. Sorry, I've got a terrible cough this end.
That's okay.
We're all ill.
There is a fair bit of it going around, I must say. I've been up on blocks this week.
Hi, chaps. From Ian Jolliffe, sorry. Hi, chaps. I've just woken up from a vivid dream where I was watching the Han Solo film.
Seen more of it than we have.
Han was talking to Fish about why he was only invited to... why he only invited 2, not 4 members of the Edges group Buckfizz to a birthday party. I mean, this is deep stuff. In the dream, I was actually watching this from the movie. It got me thinking about how virtual reality and VR games are starting to come out. I can envisage a future where you can buy a VR copy of a film and either reenact or change a scene in a film. I imagine coming out into the rain as Obi-Wan and having to block Jango Fett's blaster bolts in your lightsaber, or running through the corridors of Bespin as Chewie as stormtroopers chase you towards the Falcon. If you could pick one obvious scene and one obscure one to be in, what would it be, and what would you change? For me, obvious. Luke in Cloud City as he confronts Vader, wouldn't change a thing. Obscure, as Anakin by the Lake of Naboo, the whole I hate sand scene. I would change it to I love sand, and it's a key building material. Kids like to play in sand. You get a big bag of it in the supermarket and for £3, although it's pretty heavy. Who knows how different the Anakin and Padme relationship would have turned out if you'd said that. Great to hear yours. Keep it clean, Stephen. Next, good timing. You probably aren't there. He is.
Just made it back. It is all about timing.
Yeah, so chin up and super sus and all that. It's a family show. All the best, Ian Jolliffe. So, sorry, no pressure, Steve. Welcome back. The floor is yours.
Okay, somebody else go first. I need to digest.
Well, mine's in there because I've had some time with this question before you guys. So, my obvious scene would be Luke at the Sarlacc in Return of the Jedi, and I wouldn't change a thing. I find that to be less terrifying than facing off against Vader in virtual reality, which I think would be pant-fillingly terrifying. The obscure one would be Obi-Wan in Theed in the Duel of the Fate scene, and I'd change it so that I use that Force Dash ability that they used at the start of that movie to catch up with Qui-Gon and Maul so that it would tip the balance of that duel, and we'll see where it went from there.
I would say this is to reenact with me in the place of the
yes, indeed, yeah,
right. So I'd love to reenact the scene with Vader in Empire at the end when Luke, because I'm obviously far more masterful than Luke would ever be with the saber. And I've seen loads of ways he could have had him, so that's a given. And the obscure one, because it's a family show, I will keep it clean. I would like to do the scene where Leia's trying to pee off Han by kissing her brother. I'd be Luke kissing my sister. Is that good enough for a family show?
That's kind of clean. Well, I mean, it's all about family, Steve. So
I love you, Steve.
Got it,
Yeah, he said it's a family show. I'm keeping it in the family.
Yeah, a little bit too much in the family. No. Gents, do you have one, Rob?
So I wouldn't actually put myself in any lightsaber fight because I've seen myself with a pen, and I just know that one arm is coming off through my own my own pillory.
He actually has cut his arm off with a pen.
That's a good word.
That's true. Yeah,
Pillory.
I don't know if it's pillory. I don't know if it's a real word, but I'm having it.
It needs to be.
If it's not, we're going to make it happen, Steve.
I think it's an old English word.
How would you spell it? Pillory?
Pillory, like pillock and then R-Y. That's how I think of it.
Because pillock's a great word.
Is it a real thing, Mark?
I'm looking.
I have absolutely no idea. I
sounds
barely
like
know
it should be
modern words.
The act of being a pillock.
Yeah, you're a master.
There is
master at pillockry.
no word.
I am a master of pillockry. I'm
Did you mean pitlockery? No. I want to know what that is as well.
Be careful.
Leave it with me. I'll find out.
So I'll tell you what. I'll stick myself in the obscure scene with a lightsaber. It's not kind of obscure, I guess. I would put myself in. I wouldn't put myself in a space battle because I'm completely glad-handed when it comes to that stuff as well. So, pod race.
Oh,
I was thinking that.
In Ben Quadraneros' pod.
Oh, well, so you don't even get off the start line. Well, that's probably the safest way of doing it.
I'd fix it. I wouldn't flood a fuel inject. You can't flood a fuel injected engine, so I'd make sure that was going on. Obscure scene. I would put myself in the Chancellor's office in Episode 3 and take Palpatine's hands off. Credits.
Okay.
I saw that as a meme, and it was, he must live. It's like, he's too dangerous to be left alive. And he goes, why not chop off his hands? And that way he can't summon Force Lightning, but he's no threat to us, and he can stand trial. And you just see it cut back to Samuel L. and it goes, mother effer, that's a good plan. Credits.
Genius.
Stuck in my head.
Sorry, I zoned out. I hadn't slept for days. But Rob, did you talking about the Mace Windu bit as well? Because that's the bit. Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with that. That would have been awesome.
It's been interesting to see a different take on it, like because that would have been. I'll tell you what, that would have made a really interesting film as well. Because in the novelization, they have a really long chat about the Force and the dark side and all that stuff, Anakin and Palpatine, as part of the book. It would be really nice to see it instead in the film. They take off his hands and think that's it. He's no threat to us. And actually, while he's in prison, he's talking to Anakin and getting into his head that way.
Yeah,
he
that would have been a cool scene as well. Mastered stumpery, yeah.
The art of stumpery.
I mastered the art of stumpery.
He did get a single.
Is it possible to learn this power?
You just have one big one.
I'm asking for a friend who may have lost his arm at Geonosis. Yeah.
Paul, do you have any scenes?
Yes. Luke and the whole battle of Yavin.
Okay.
Death Star Trench, the whole works. And obscure, very, very simple. I'd like to be a stormtrooper that stands there, and when an old guy waves and says, "These aren't the droids you're looking for," I go, "Well, they look like it, mate." And we wait. And see what effect that had on the whole film.
Yeah,
no, these droids. Right, got the droids, guys.
Credits.
Go home.
Yeah,
that's it.
We should see who can do the credits first, shouldn't we?
On the Death Star 2. Yeah, on the Death Star 2. Oh, no, I can do the credits first really easily.
Be the gunner on the.
There's no life forms on that. Shoot it anyway. Credits.
Yeah.
Whole saga. Whole of episode 4. No, Death Star 2. Vader's saying, "If you will not be turned, perhaps she will," and Luke just goes, "Turned like your mama."
Not sure these fit quite into the whole feeling of Star Wars, but I'm feeling it.
No.
Well, some people are saying that. Some people are saying that about Last Jedi, Steve. These things are subjective.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can't be any worse than Poe's thing about yo mum. Yeah, is that that's where you're getting it from, isn't it?
No, but that does occur to me as something daft.
Yeah. It's got a message about your mum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was cringeworthy.
Some of the contemporary stuff in there is obvious, but it's it's there to mature. Yeah. It's there to grow on us.
I think it would have done well to mature before the film.
Yeah. Ian, great question. A lot of fun. Thank you so much, and we'll be hearing again from Ian. I think in just a few minutes time. He says scrolling through. I'm pretty sure that Ian's question is in there somewhere. If not, I'll drop it in. All right, let's move on to Ad's reaction. He's sent us a message. This is Ad's reaction to The Last Jedi.
Evening everyone, it's Ads here. It is 20 to 8 on the 14th of December. I'm sat in my car. I have a bag of Maltesers and I'm 20 minutes away from seeing The Last Jedi. I fully expect that this recording of 2 tonight will be the more coherent one, as if it's anything like Rogue One, I remember sitting in the car and being pretty speechless, really, trying to take it all in. I've remained spoiler free for about the last month. That's been really difficult, not sort of listening to too much of sort of Tumbling Saber, talk Star Wars, etc. So really looking forward to getting back into what everyone is thinking about the film. So yeah, I'll check back in approximately 3 hours time, I guess. Wow. Okay, it's 11 o'clock. I'm sat in my car again and I have absolutely no idea what I've just watched. That was amazing in parts.
It's so
bizarre
so
in others. I don't know whether I love it or hate's the wrong word, but certainly aspects of the film I just wasn't expecting. I don't think I would have given that outcome if I had tried a few times to try and hit the mark with it. I did not see Luke's end at the end. At the end of the film, I did not see him dying. I thought it would be a sure thing that he would last to episode 9. I was disappointed with Snoke. I thought Snoke was going to be this big bad villain throughout the trilogy, and he seemed to show incredible power, but then be tricked really easily into dying. I don't know what I make about Kylo now being the big bad. I'm not so sure about that. I like that Rey hasn't turned to the dark side. I like that she is still very much the good guy, the good girl to root for. I was surprised when Leia showed her Force ability, although I'm warming to that. I'm glad that she had the whole film, and what will be in episode 9 is up for debate now again, but I'm glad that she had her story and that wasn't changed. What else? Again, not so much R2. I love a bit of R2, so I would have liked a little bit more of him, but enjoyed the BB-8. Love Rose. I think Rose is a fantastic character, really, really good. Loved the relationship she had with Finn. A bit all over the place here, but I guess the film seemed to sort of, people just appeared when I kept thinking, oh, well, how have you turned up just there? I mean, obviously the Luke thing was understandable or explained at the end. I thought that was incredible, how he obviously used up all of his power to project himself onto the planet. So I think it was a really good fitting way for him to die, but I'm just disappointed that he's not going to be there other than a Force ghost, I suspect, in episode 9. I loved seeing Yoda. Yoda was brilliant, and I loved the music. The music for Yoda and Luke, that was a really, really good. A little side thing, when Laura Dern's character, forgive me, I can't remember her name, when Laura Dern's character first appeared and she was given the speech, it must have been deliberate. There was a nobody in the background who looked the spitting image of what George Lucas looked like when he was filming Star Wars in 77. If you get a chance to have a look back, full on beard, hair, it could have been George Lucas. What else? I think really I'm gonna need to see that again, and probably again, if not again, to get a clear idea of what my views are.
Loved 37 now.
Loved it. Didn't like certain things, the extent of which I'm not sure. But yeah, I need to see it again to really get an idea of where I am. Totally expected to feel like this in the sense of not knowing how I feel, but yeah, I will look forward to hearing about what everyone else thinks as well. Cool. Okay, I'm going to go home now. Bye.
Bye.
I really love the image of Edge just getting out of his car and hanging his head low and saying, "Oh, I'll do another one now," and walking back to the theatre for his second go. He really sounded like he had a lot of trouble wrapping his mind around what he'd just seen.
A lot of people.
A lot of people did, yeah, exactly. That's it.
The ratings on Rotten Tomato are going
all over the place. Yeah,
decent winter. It's at 50. Is it 53 today?
Was it?
Has it gone down?
So.
Some of this has got to be sport now.
Yesterday, then 55.
Some of I said before, some of it is, but it's no good. You just can't write off all of it as
no.
Some concerted effort.
Can I ask? I kind of know Paul, and I guess him Mark.
I feel like you know Mark and Paul pretty well.
Well, yeah, because so I can gauge how I'm going to talk to you and what about and whether you're on the same page. What did you like it out of 10? Like, just give us a quick so I can digest that, and then we'll go back to the question.
Oh, I didn't do my out of 10, did I? About 7.5.
Okay, I'm about 7.5, 8 now. But my 7.5, 8 is for Star Wars movies, not all my films, because Star Wars movies don't even enter into my top 50. But I'm about 8. Actually, I'm about 8. 8 out of 10. I quite liked it, even though.
There you go, listeners. Steve giveth and Steve taketh away.
No. I still really liked it, and I'd like to watch it now if it was on.
You're not the master of backhanded compliments. That title has been taken.
What's happened is I've managed. Like you take it away, you digest it, and then I thought, hang on a minute, that just doesn't make sense. There's so many things that I've kind of thought in my head that just doesn't make sense, and there's a few, but I'm still at 8/8.5. I think I did really like it.
Yep.
And as a Star Wars film, I loved it. So there's the love bit that I gave the other day.
I think me and you are pretty well aligned, Steve, from the sounds of it. I was just talking to the guys about it. We did about 40 minutes, so I don't want to labour on it too long.
No.
But my kind of feeling is I liked it, didn't love it. In terms of, it probably middles out in the pack for me as a part of the rankings of Star Wars. It's my second favourite Disney one behind Rogue One.
Yeah.
I liked it better than Force Awakens, but not as much as Rogue One.
No, that makes sense. Paul, you haven't softened at all. You're kind of the same.
Oh my!
He's passed out 3 times.
Is Paul even there?
That's 4.
Yes.
Oh, there he is. Hello. So you're around the same as you did the other day, Paul.
Just waiting for the gap. Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. Cool. Period.
Well, that's good. I mean, I did. I really loved it as a Star Wars movie. It's still up there with Empire and Jedi because I like the fact that they were bold.
Yep.
And I'm giving them a lot of, but there was a lot like that whole scene with that Rose and Finn. They could have got rid of that whole bit, and in fact, their whole thread and just killed him at the end. I would have been quite happy with that.
I didn't mind their stuff. I felt it was a little bit. We talked earlier about how the jokes were a little bit, on the nose. Like they didn't really have any subtlety for me. And for me, the other thing that suffered from that was the kind of allusions to real world political events.
Yeah,
it was
very social justice stuff going on.
Yeah, Canto Bite was very much that whole exchange was a bit of a,
Yeah, it's like someone who's funding the film said, "I'll fund it, but you got to put this in and this."
Do you know what? They could have done that.
We got $2.5 million from
They
Peter.
could have done that in the 80s, though, couldn't they? They could, the same parallels could have been drawn in the 80s or the 70s to the same things.
But then I think
it seemed more contrived.
It's
time.
always
it's more
always
ham-fisted,
present.
not as subtle.
I think this film is way more contemporary, and good science fiction, as in Star Trek, often offers up a mirror to the time in which it's made, and shows, and it's more of a social commentary. Star Wars has never done that. It seems to be doing it more
subtle.
Yeah, there are people that call out some of the prequels and say that in fact it does do that, but I would say that this is the more overt entry. Is someone scratching their mic?
Oh, it's resting on my jumper. Sorry.
Okay.
Can I ask a question that you probably discussed, and so that I know that I've got it completely wrong? One of the biggest bugbears I had with it, out of all the bugbears, because I loved loads of bits, and there was loads of bits that drove me nuts, and that's probably why I like it, because it made me think as a film, and I quite like that.
Yeah.
But wasn't Luke in The Force Awakens the whole idea of Luke didn't Luke put the plans in R2 and give him a piece of the puzzle so that someone could find it if they needed to?
No. The map R2 had was from the Imperial Archive. It was something he downloaded after on the Death Star, wasn't it?
Did they explain why a piece was missing, though?
That is something that I think R2 did subsequently. The map that he had was something he'd taken from the Death Star, but the annotations were something that he'd done subsequently.
So Luke didn't want to be found even in Force Awakens?
No, he didn't want to be found. And we're still yet to learn how Lor San Tekka got that memory stick with that scrap of the map on it, and where that scrap of the map came from, whose care it was in. These are some of the questions that went unanswered.
But that's the problem. I think that if you're not going to find out Rey's lineage and much about Snoke, they don't want to answer any questions from The Force Awakens or anything else.
They want to raise... I think somebody said, I need to go back and watch Force Awakens having watched Last Jedi. I read somewhere that somebody said that it actually creates more plot holes in Force Awakens because of the fact that they ignore some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff they do. So I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah.
We're all in. I haven't verified it.
3/4 of this podcast are in our 40s.
Other than that, my biggest gripe was actually with the best scene in the movie with the hyperspace into the Snoke ship. What's it called?
I thought that was dumb too, Steve. I thought it looked amazing, but it didn't make sense.
But then use that in every battle you've ever had.
That's what I said.
Let's go and defeat the Death Star.
Just have a ship with a droid on it.
Yeah, and
its job is to just if stuff goes sideways, just throw that through. Just go into hyperspace via the nearest ship, the biggest one you can find.
Death Star was too big a beast to suffer that kind of.
It would have done like the speed of light.
I feel like the Death Star didn't even need a laser. You could have just hyperspaced that through the middle of Alderaan.
Yeah, don't forget, Paul. They could have gone straight to the centre of the ship and destroyed the bit that the torpedo got.
If you feel like you've already heard this, I will insert a time code now so you can jump back and hear us discuss this just a few minutes ago.
Sorry. But that
came up during our discussion. Believe it or not, Steve, a lot of stuff did because it was about 40 minutes long.
And the lightsaber over the shoulder. There was so many. Yeah, but the trouble is, it took away all the seriousness of, but I liked it. But the trouble is, all the funny bits in that film. Somebody said it's too many funny bits. I said I didn't see any funny bits, and I only remembered one funny bit, and that's because they weren't funny. There was only one funny bit when they think, "Do you think you got him?"
Oh, I love
that.
That
quite
bit.
Funny.
Yeah, because
nothing else was funny.
It was Hux kind of going back to that sort of sneery one-upsmanship type of character.
I liked
that. I liked that banter. I really thought that
I like that.
Some of that dialogue, the way it was written, really reminded me of sort of Kasdan's writing on Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that whole thing.
Sorry, which bit? We're talking about Kylo and
the Hux, and some of the stuff with do you think you got him? Or and there's something else where Kylo gives an order and then Hux leans in and repeats it really loudly in his ear.
I liked that stuff. That's the stuff
I like that.
Yeah.
I just enjoyed it.
At the beginning.
It's the look that Kylo leans in. Is like, are you joking?
Yeah.
Are you serious right now? You know they can see you and they can see me, right?
It's like Paul and I discussed last week about what would the First Order be now that Hux and Kylo are running it, and I think it's going to be like a couple of kids with their parents' car. That's kind of what I imagine, and no good can come of it because they don't think they have the experience or the discipline to sort of do this properly. No. They've always needed somebody.
All Ray and Poe got to just make it implode.
Yeah, just sit back, really. Just sort of stay at arm's length.
I was watching a lot of... this is why I like the film, because it made me think more than any other Star Wars film and any other thing on this podcast has ever done. Now, it even made me watch... I watched about 6 hours of YouTube stuff. I watched Ben Shapiro. I watched Half in the Bag as well, which did a fantastic... That's a great YouTube.
You mean when you say you watch Ben Shapiro? Do you mean you watch Shapiro's review? Because I liked his review.
watch Ben Shapiro's review, and I watched Half in the Bag's review, and also Angry Joe guy. What's his name? Angry.
Oh, I'm not a biggest fan.
And I also watched
fan of his.
No, I also watched some positive stuff as well. Yeah. And it made me realise why I loved them more than anything else. What I liked about the movie was visually and auditorily. If that's a word. That won it for me, and I could watch that film with the music off, or I could listen to the film with the video off and be quite happy. They were both amazing, and although the story, it was very fast and it kept you entertained, but it was ridiculous in places. But I still liked it, and that's what's annoying me. I can't figure out why I liked it. And I think it's because originality.
You don't have to
visual.
Don't beat yourself up about liking something, you old curmudgeon. You can like it and just enjoy the fact that you like it.
That's fine.
I know, but I'm the biggest Star Wars hater.
Yeah, but you never used to be, Steve. You never used to be. You've turned pooping into Star Wars into an art form, and now you like something.
But now
give yourself
I'm
a free
liking something
pass.
that everyone hates.
You've got another 2 years before the next one comes out. Then you can poop all over that. So enjoy this one.
My biggest issue, I wrote a tweet or something the other day. It might have been on a YouTube message. And I put, I'm quite happy, even though I like the film a hell of a lot. And I watch it. I can't wait for it to come out so I can watch it again. I don't think I'll watch the next one at the movies. I honestly don't think I will. No.
Okay.
I think I'll wait. And honestly... that's why I've got this dichotomy going on.
You do seem to be struggling in having an internal battle.
Really annoyed and really liking something.
You're really annoyed because you like something, because you hate joy.
No. I both love it and hate it at the same time. What do they call that?
Being a complete mental, Steve. That's what they call
ambivalence.
Ambivalence.
I'm ambivalent.
And
that is my problem.
You're also full of it. You'll go and see it at the cinema, so sure.
You know what? I feel like I fell in love with that film, and then it left me for Blade Runner, and I caught them sleeping together. and I still love it, and I love it even more because it did the dirty on me.
Your mind is like a bag of cats, isn't it? It's just
you are like
positive wonderland.
You're like an artichoke, Steve. We are just peeling away one fascinating layer after another.
But I bet you some of the listeners will understand what it's like to sleep with a film. No, it doesn't want what I mean.
No, you lost everybody. You lost everybody there.
Yeah, walk it back.
Steve, at the risk of asking you to speak more, can I get you to read Jared's question this week, Jared Peppard?
Good. We're on page 2.
I'm going to belch.
We knew this would happen.
Might happen halfway through, but I hope not.
I'll tell you what else will happen halfway through.
This is from Gerard Peppard.
Episode 120 of Talk Star Wars. Sorry, carry on, Steve.
All right. It's not often that I tell you to shut up. And thought I'd give these over before I forget or the baby comes. Is he pregnant? I loved the thought of The Last Jedi. Found it really fun and overall felt Star Wars.
Baby now.
I felt Star Wars. Didn't like seeing Luke's daily routine or Leia flying through space. Don't start me on that. And was not disappointed not to see the Knights of Ren, but loved Kylo and Rey. My questions then. I'm fine with Snoke's past not being explained further on screen, but I would love Snoke to be Plagueis, tying all 3 trilogies together, and for James Luceno to rewrite the Darth Plagueis novel like Timothy Zahn did with Thrawn, which is a favourite for the hardcore fans. Would you like Snoke to be Plagueis, and would you be happy with a novel whose backstory? Question 1. Hans Gold dice from the Falcon in The Last Jedi was a bit in your face, so I think we'll definitely see them again in a Han Solo film, but do you think they have any more significance than just being an Easter egg? Cheers, Mark. Oh, don't worry about us, Jared. Breakdown. How should Lucasfilm
He's busy with a new baby.
Well, I guess. How should Lucasfilm address the Snoke origin now? Retcon him into Plagueis, or tell an original story elsewhere? Are the Falcon dice going to be in the Solo movie? And if so, how important are they? And yeah, I guess that covers the whole, would you like Snoke to be Plagueis and would you be happy with the novel for his backstory? So, yes, Mark.
Yes. I think that they could very well retcon him into being Plagueis now. I know Pablo's been very vocal about how, no, he's not. Snoke's an original character and he's not Plagueis. Plagueis is dead, and he sort of stamped that with a nice big fat Pablo Hidalgo seal. But I think there's plenty of room to walk this stuff back if they wanted to. And I think making him Plagueis would make a lot of sense of the 9 movies, which I know is one of JJ's priorities, is to tie all 9 movies together in episode 9. But right now, I imagine they're just going to walk away from the Snoke of it all, and we're not going to hear another word on screen about him. So
that's a shame.
But I think it would work. A retcon for Plagueis, I think it could really work very well and would probably play to the audience quite well, because a lot of people were sort of banging that drum for a long time. In terms of the Falcon dice, just to touch on that, I think they're just an Easter egg in here, because we saw Han put them back in the Falcon in, I think it might have even been in some deleted scenes, may not have been in the main movie, but
I think you're right.
Yeah, we saw him hang the dice up, so I just think it's kind of a nice little nod to that, really.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's anything. I don't think we're going to expect any more to it than that. With the Plagueis stuff, do you know, the longer it goes since seeing the movie, the less I care about the Snoke backstory, because somebody pointed out on Twitter, somebody was talking about why it didn't necessarily matter that it wasn't in this film, that we didn't know anything about Palpatine in episode 5 originally. We just saw him as this sort of floating head, and we heard him reference in episode 4. And it was only when we got the prequels that we actually started to gain some background on how he came to power. Now, in terms of, there are some sort of drawbacks to that line of argument, because Snoke was powerful enough to turn Ben against Luke without meeting him. From the wording of the movie, it makes it sound like Snoke had actually never been in his presence, and yet he'd still managed to poison his mind as far as Luke was concerned. So the fact that he can do that, the fact he can pick Hux up and throw him around from somewhere else in space, these all feel like somebody we want to hear more about.
Yeah.
These all seem like actions from somebody who's a bit more powerful than knife to the chest. We did learn, more about him, though. We learned how easily he goes down.
Yeah, that's true.
We learned he's got a very flimsy midsection.
It's the arrogance, really, isn't it? That Palpatine displayed that sort of got the better of him.
I was good with that. That's probably why I was all right with it, because I liked that kind of side of it.
Cool. Paul?
Well, we discussed this in length last week, didn't we? I personally found that the Snoke, and I'm going to go off a tangent, the Snoke Phasma requirement for depth, backstory, and everything else was fan service, and actually wasn't really relevant to what might happen or what might come our way. So I had no issue. I didn't care for a backstory on either one of them.
Okay.
To be honest, and I was very pleased to see these two characters just cut, no explanation, ballsy filmmaking from my point of view, and that was that. You don't need a motorway for everybody in front to see what's going to happen and so on. You don't need a backstory every time either. I think I used the quote Marc last week when I say "Kings are killed, Mr. Garrison" kind of thing. It's just like sometimes this happens, and you might find some more out later, which I think we will. But I don't think it hurt the story at all. I think it made it a lot more interesting.
I don't know if I agree with that. I like I said earlier on, we were talking about it. It's just one of those things. It's just subjective. But watching the film, I really felt like it would have done well to have another villain who was a credible threat to the rebellion and the resistance. But in the end, it literally is just Kylo now.
Yeah, but in a way,
to me, is a bit of
what you were saying, but Paul.
We'd have no idea how credible he's going to become.
We don't at the moment. Paul,
they have a lot of scope to improve on it, and they can probably make him very credible.
There is a small tangent in The Empire Strikes Back in the fact that we're in a situation now. Kylo's just seen them get away at the end of the second act, in exactly the same way Vader saw them get away at the end of the second act again.
Yeah.
And there's someone on board that's really attractive to him as well.
And who does Kylo model himself on so much?
Yeah.
Darth Vader. So I think we've got some very interesting times ahead with Kylo, who's still, without a doubt, the most
might be like Rob said.
On that, I totally agree. Paul.
The elsewhere of it all, Rob.
They've turned me round to Kylo Ren as the most interesting part of the entire the new trilogy by far.
And he's got great pecs.
And that's the point.
He's got incredible.
He looks like a cinema screen.
Aspirational figure in that respect.
It's like you were saying, Paul. When you said kings are killed, it's the Kingslayers that become more interesting, right? When you see how powerful Kylo Ren is for getting the upper hand in that situation, when he's finally out from under Snoke's thumb, what can he become?
But it's
will be quite interesting.
We had threats from different places in the original trilogy. We had, admittedly, it kind of came to nothing, but we did have, this kind of unknown, incredible kind of potential character in Boba Fett. And like I say, it did come to nothing eventually, but we didn't know that at the time. And we had this kind of nebulous emperor figure who we didn't know much about, but we had a feeling he was going to play into the story heavily. And this is uncharted territory. We don't have this anymore. But like I said, it would have been nice to see a little bit of effort made to strengthen another character besides Kylo. Because just imagine if he hadn't landed, where would they have gone from there?
Yeah, true. Steve, did you have any thoughts on the Snoke is Plagueis side of this? Oh, Paul, sorry, you didn't mention the Falcon dice? What's your position on those?
No, none. They were just a totem.
Just a sweet little...
just a totem used to identify an emotional bond between three characters.
Yeah. They were almost... they're almost...
And they weren't actually there.
Standing, weren't they?
They weren't actually there, don't forget.
No, that's true.
No, again, very true, yeah. Again, very, very true. Steve, your take on this, on Jared's question.
Who's gone to sleep?
Steve, are you there? Are you on mute?
He's bagging off.
Well, he's there.
Has he
yeah, he is there. There you go.
I was on mute because I was snorting because of my cold. Yeah, I'm going to use my slot to moan about something else. Because I agree with all of you. I agree about the dice. I agree about Snoke. There's no point in me reiterating it. But I will go back to Jared's. And Jared mentioned Leia floating through space, and that kind of epitomised what the problems I did have with the film that weren't all the time big things. Sometimes they were incidental. I didn't mind the fact that Leia floated through space and used the Force because Luke said himself, in time you'll learn to use it as I have.
Right.
So that's fine. It's a bit of a leap that you've had a bubble around you, you're frozen solid, blah, blah, blah. Your insides would be outside your body. Don't care. It's fine. It's a film. What annoyed me more than anything is she got back in and knocked on the door window in a vacuum but that didn't. I can pass that. But then they just opened the door, like they would all be sucked out. Like, you've done all that work to make it plausible that she's not dead, and then she knocks on the door and you just open it. And why didn't everyone get sucked out into space? That really annoyed me.
Yeah,
force fields.
So, we talked about it earlier.
No, they didn't turn the force field on.
Steve, we talked about it earlier, and I kind of, the thing for me was there are a few scenes like that were made to look beautiful and ended up being quite stupid.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It looked gorgeous.
Yeah.
As did most of the stuff in that film. But you're telling me someone didn't have the guts to say to Ryan, should we just make a chamber where there's 2 doors and she gets inside,
like
closes
a pressurized
one,
chamber, yeah.
Like, ain't that much work, is it? Because otherwise people
we've only got the budget for one door.
Yeah.
We've used everything else up and CGI puppet Yoda.
Force field, a Star Trek force field. Somebody turns it on, done.
And that's the difference. In Star Trek, they would have shown you that. They would have had a long sequence where someone would have made a cup of Earl Grey tea, and then they discuss the merits of having force fields that cut in and save, like, carry pop-ins from flying into space. But in Star Wars, they trust the audience to sort of make that connection themselves.
They know we're so desperate to make these things make sense. Well, right.
And also,
we do need a little bit of. It needs to be built in your mind, right? Because when she went up to the door, I thought, oh yeah, don't open that because you get sucked out. And then suddenly just bleeding opens. It's a bit of steam, and that's it. I'm like, no, that's not how vacuums worked. Like, we've all done the nut and feather experiment at school, for God's sake.
Careful
You didn't do the vacuum, though, Steve.
Yeah, he did.
He did, because they had the budget for 2 doors.
Yeah. His school was very advanced.
Anyway, that was my little gripe.
No,
so that's what I'm going to use my time
fair
for.
enough.
Okay, no, that's fine. Right, so now you don't have any other opinions, and so we're going to move on.
Piece on that bit. Yep.
Jared, thank you so much, and congratulations once again. Because Steve, at the top of the episode, we did congratulate Jared and his wife Shanika on the birth of their baby.
Oh, they've had it.
Yeah,
well
a little
done.
boy named.
Nice.
I mentioned it 3 times in the course of that diatribe.
Oh, sorry.
Ezra Kieran Bridger Peppard, and that kid has got to grow into being a movie star, because that name.
Because if he doesn't,
I didn't mean it as threatening as that. It was not. It's not terms and conditions of use.
George.
Well, that's what they're going to shorten his name to, like Ben. But that doesn't end well. All right, let's.
George Peppard. He'd give him a cigar when he comes out instead of giving it to the dad, and he'll go, "I love it when the plan comes together. It would be awesome."
Outdated references. Okay, let's get another voicemail, and this one is from Reese with his reaction to The Last Jedi.
Hey, Talk Star Wars, it's Reese from California checking in with my initial reaction to The Last Jedi. Honestly, as much as I loved the film and thought it was done well and shot well and had breathtaking visuals, there's a ton of sadness associated with this film for me. And not just the sadness that comes with Carrie being gone and with what happens with Luke's character and some of the other characters and all those things, but this film to me really marked a shift in who the intended audience is for Star Wars, and I believe that the intended audience is now a younger generation, and it's not me or us anymore. And although I'll still support and I'm probably still enjoy all of the films that are to come from Lucasfilm and Disney in the Star Wars franchise, I don't think they're ever going to be the same. And I'm not sure exactly how to quantify that or verbalize that to you guys, but it's a feeling that I had initially from watching the film. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to watch it a couple more times and see if anything changes, but that's where I'm at right now. I love the film. It was fantastic, but it wasn't what I know to be a Star Wars film or what I was expecting from a Star Wars film. Cheers, guys. Hope you're having a great show, and I hope to hear from you soon. And thanks a lot for letting me share my opinion. Bye.
Thank you, Reese.
Wow. How apt is that that's exactly how everyone feels.
He's lovely. Isn't he lovely?
He is lovely. Yeah,
He is lovely.
You start to see that this common thread in
Paul's
early opinions. No, not everyone, Paul. Not everyone, but there is
That's what Steve just said.
Some commonality. Well, let's not hold Steve for everything he says.
No, what I mean is there is a lot.
Could be here for a while.
There's a lot of things he's saying that I hadn't thought of. Like, actually, it's gearing up for a new generation, and that is exactly right.
Yeah, we hit on a bit of that last week when I said I'd had a bit of problem with some of the humour, and I realised that some of the humour was aimed at me, like the Raiders of the Lost Ark style dialogue, and some of it was aimed at a younger generation, the kids that most people my age take with them, hopefully they're their own, to see this film.
Like Yo Mama.
And it's things like the drinking of the green milk and stuff like that. That's aimed to please the little ones. They'll find that funny where we find it ludicrous. So there is a mix. I think it is being aimed at a new audience. Hopefully it's not at the expense of us completely. But it is one of those things. It's like Jeremy's Claire said, this is the problem when grown men overanalyze a kid's film. Maybe that's a tad dismissive, but it's...
When did she say that?
Yeah, Jeremy sent me a message to that effect the other day. I thought that was quite funny.
Yeah, that's quite apt.
Yeah. All right.
In a sad way.
Reese, thank you for your voicemail. Thank you for your feedback on the movie. Right, this is from Alex C. Hackney. Alex says, good day, everyone. So The Last Jedi is out and it seems to be a little divisive. Could say that. I, for one, came out of my initial viewing of it on opening night disappointed. And whilst seeing it for a second time the next day helped a bit, there's still the feeling of unsatisfaction. I'm new to the podcast. In fact, your breakdown of The Last Jedi was the first I've heard of you, to be honest. Well, yeah. I've actually just read that the way it meant. Sorry. So that in fact your breakdown of Last Jedi was the first I've heard of you, to be honest. But with that, I have listened to. I am excited to listen to the rest of what you have to offer. Thank you, Alex. I am usually not one to deep dive into movies, but The Last Jedi has set me on a path to listen to everyone's thoughts and opinions on the film. Part of me thinks that Johnson is getting a little too much credit for The Last Jedi, and I just don't understand it. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's a bad movie. The sound and cinematography are very good, but some of the writing I found to be a little weak. And my big issue, there's a lot of common threads to people's thoughts on it, but my big issues are with two scenes in particular. The first scene that has really just kept bothering me is in the beginning with Leia force pulling herself back to the ship. I thought it was a terrible mistake bringing her back in the movie after she was sucked out into space. I was so surprised and just gutted when I thought that was how she was going to go. This woman, Carrie Fisher, a person who I've watched and grown to love in a portrayal of Princess Leia / General Organa, was just killed right there so quickly, and it was just so moving. But I thought it was really ruined bringing her back, and worries me with how they're going to handle her character in the future. I mean, we only have to look at Rogue One to see that CGI is not ready to have an entire movie with a CGI human character. So it leaves me wondering what they were thinking. The second scene that I found very off-putting was Luke brushing off his shoulders when being blasted by the AT-ATs. I have to admit, it's a little thing that he does. It just doesn't feel like Luke, nor does it fit into the movies, in my opinion. I think that move will be lost on people when it's part of the saga and it's viewed in many years down the road, because that is something that seems to me is fixed in our current generation, and I just can't imagine the brushing off of the shoulders is going to weigh the same in the future. That's what I was saying earlier about how some of these elements in the movie feel a little bit too contemporary. It goes on to say, I could be wrong, but it just really felt like it was the first time something like that had happened in Star Wars. All of these movies are so timeless and are represented so well, and nothing ever feels lost in translation, whether spoken or done with a hand gesture. Call me picky, but I hated it. Well, enough with me ranting, and in the ending, what am I doing there with words? Enough with the ranting, and in the end, I look forward to sitting down with the film some more to see if it digests any easier. I want to hope that it will grow on me, and I'm pretty confident in placing it on the lower end of the scale of Star Wars films. I hope Abrams can come back in and bring the magic that was The Force Awakens. But until then, I can't wait to stay in touch with you guys and listen to what you have to say. Cheers from Ohio, Alex. Thank you, Alex. Now, I have to apologise, because when I first read this, I read that line in the second paragraph as I'm very new to the podcast. In fact, your breakdown of The Last Jedi was the first I'd heard of you, to be honest. I think we're pretty honest. So I totally read that line out of context.
Oh, as in,
so it's the first time he'd heard of us.
The first time I've heard of you being honest.
Yes.
But actually he meant, it's the first time I've heard of you, to be honest.
Yeah, so in the breakdown, I've put a quick note. I hope Alex meant that he meant the first time he's heard podcasters be honest about a film, but I think what he means is that's the first time I'd heard her talk Star Wars because of the breakdown, which is great. So my little faux pas here aside, Alex, welcome to the community, and I hope you stick with us, even though I don't do words good. All right, so let's break this down.
It doesn't sound like it'd be in the community for long.
Sorry, I was AFK. I do words slightly better.
So, breakdown. What do we make of Alex's points regarding space layout and Luke brushing off his shoulders in particular? But is this film more contemporary than previous Star Wars films, and will that be an issue for audiences in the future?
Want me to go first?
Go for it, Steve.
I pretty much agree with a lot of what he said. I mean, the thing about the cinematography and the sound, I mean, it's just bang on. I do think I'm not worried too much about Leia floating through space back in, but they have missed the trick. I mean, if she wasn't really deceased in real life, it wouldn't be an issue. But like, talk about the perfect opportunity to write someone out of a trilogy in the right way. I know they wanted, that was a good twist, but it's not a twist when somebody's really dead in real life and you want to see him off in the right way. Now, how the hell are they going to do it? So I totally get that. And there's
JJ's problem.
There's a whole plethora of the Luke brushing the shoulder thing. I didn't think about, but it doesn't really seem like Luke, but I thought it was one of the funnier bits that was supposed to be funny. But it was a bit tongue-in-cheek, which I didn't really like. But it was all right, but I see what he's getting at. There was a lot of stuff in there that I completely agreed with. But, yeah, mainly the cinematography question. But I don't think it was a perfect movie at all. I think it's one of the least perfect, but I'm in that same place where I still loved it because it looked amazing and it was entertaining. Except for the Canto Bite bit. Please destroy it.
That's an extreme position.
Planet 1%.
Yeah.
Paul, what do you think of Alex's points, particularly about the contemporary nature of some of the elements in this movie?
Again, loved it. Bring it on. I have no problem with these movies going off in a slightly different direction, as long as they keep the tone of Star Wars. If they go in a different direction with the idealism in different writing styles and so on, bring it on. That's okay. Star Wars to me is about places and people. It doesn't have to necessarily be the same type of story every time, sort of thing. So that's absolutely fine. In relation to Space Leo, as people keep calling it, I literally see it as a moment in a film where somebody technically has an ability to do something and they did it, and we haven't seen it done before, and so it seems to be unacceptable for some people. But it's a space film about strange things that go on. It's all fictional.
Space wizards.
And I thought it was a very interesting part. Now, in relation to, obviously, Carrie Fisher, how do we know this wasn't the very first film they shot? This might be the very first scene that was shot. And, subsequent scenes that we saw Carrie in after that might have been months later down the line in shooting. So they said there was no schedule change in Carrie's part for this film. So it's by the by that this scene was in the film. This might have been one of the earliest things they wrote. You have no idea.
I mentioned this week on one of the episodes of The Daily that Ryan has commented on his thought process after Carrie's passing and how he looked at the film, he spoke to Kathy and he said, we have an opportunity to change Leia's story to address the reality of the situation, but Carrie's performance in this film is so beautiful, I think the world deserves it. And I think that we'd be doing her an injustice if we took that away. So they let this story play out because that was Carrie's last contribution to Star Wars. And I couldn't be more behind him and that decision. When I saw Space Leia, I thought, oh no, they've missed an opportunity there. They could have just really pulled the rug out from the audience and just left it there. But that was wrong in my estimation now. I was wrong to think that because... at that point, I didn't know what Carrie was going to deliver in this movie, and Ryan's perfectly right. She nails that character perfectly. She embodies Leia. I heard Corey on Tumbling Saber say it's Leia. You're not looking at Carrie Fisher.
It's not just Carrie. It's actually Leia's character moving forward in the film.
Yes.
Even if she's not actually filmed again, her position in the story is still utterly vital to 2 or 3 scenes later on, which we also discussed last week. Otherwise, Luke's got no pull to go back into the situation.
Yeah.
So that was also, imperative. Sort of.
Yeah, it would have. There'd been a cascade effect, wouldn't there? If they pull the plug on that character at that point, when the ship blows up, then there's a cascade effect, and you then have to start swapping the Leia character out with other characters so that you don't undermine the motivations of still further characters, and then you end up with just a mess.
Trust us, we've tried writing this before, so it's not easy. In relation to Luke, a lot of people were saying this isn't Luke. No disrespect, but this is 30 years after the Luke we remember. People have no idea what kind of man he's grown into, if he's been living on that island for quite a long time. Yeah. When it came to the long stick and the hunting, he's just a guy trying to feed himself. He's just a guy trying to get a drink. There's no supermarket down the road. He has to scavenge and front, and if this is the way he has to do it. I actually loved the whole pole vault stroke spearing situation. I thought it was great. A bit puzzled as to how he got the fish up the pole, being it that long, but there you go.
Yeah.
And the other thing with the brushing of the shoulder, though, I thought it was great. That's just that's a clever old man upsetting an arrogant, angry young kid. That's all it was.
Yeah, I was with you on that.
Yeah, he's taunting Kylo, isn't he? And it's also selling the physicality of Luke.
It's sort of thing.
We learn that Luke isn't a physical presence later on in that scene, but he is. The brushing of the shoulders kind of sells that he's there physically. I guess we've interpreted it straight away. It's movie shorthand for cool guy movie stuff, but there's more to it when Luke's trying to sell this.
He's trying to waste
illusion,
time, isn't he? More than anything else.
He's buying everyone chance to escape. Yeah.
And also, if it's riling Kylo up, then brilliant. If it's riling him up and stop getting his mind off the game,
and it certainly does that. But it goes back to the kids driving their dad's car, doesn't it? Then Kylo and Hux, at that point, they were too easily distracted. Like, send all the ships after the Falcon, and Rey's like, yeah, bring them on. Let's get them away from the. They fell for every trick because they're just a couple of kids now in charge of this war machine that perhaps they shouldn't be. Rob, what's your position on these 2 points from Alex?
Finished.
Oh, sorry, Paul. I thought you'd done.
You had hours last week. I kid. Carry on.
Now, just going to say the last paragraph, which you haven't really put the breakdown as the last paragraph, is pointed out that in the next episode, is Abraham's able to stitch all this together, but is he going to do it in a way that brings the old magic back? I'm actually now concerned with the last chapter of this film because I'm a bit scared that they're going to try to give us another TFA that gives fan service as opposed to cinema service. So I'm a little concerned as to what might happen in the next film. Bearing in mind Abrams has got it, and he is a traditionalist. He's certainly a traditionalist based on his own styles and so on and so forth. So I'm a bit scared that we're going to have a little bit too many revisits. So we'll see how that goes. But there you go.
Okay. Yeah, no, fair comment.
Did you guys already discuss?
Oh, hang on.
I'll just go, shall I?
No.
I'm joking, Steve. Go on. It's fine.
Hashtag
we were talking about Luke, and I was wondering if you'd already discussed the fact, obviously he's dead, and he's not going to be in the next one, which is ridiculous. But
spoilers.
Did you discuss if Mark Hamill really knew, or was it a shock to him when he watched the film? Because when I looked when they showed an image of him afterwards, he looked like he had no idea, and he was in shock.
Oh no, he knew. He knew.
Yeah, but how easy would it have been to CGI him out, saying, "Oh, just look knackered and look at the binary suns because you're really tired because you've done a force projection, and then we'll see you in episode 10."
So you're saying there's a deleted scene on the Blu-ray of him shuffling back to his room, putting his little slippers on, going,
"No, I just think they was going to cut away from him looking at the binary suns, and then instead they put CGI, and they thought we can't tell Mark Hamill that we're going to make he's going to be surrender his body to the Force because he'll blab about it or it'll come out and then it'll ruin the film."
No, he knew.
No, I don't see
it's all in the performance.
I don't think he did.
It's all in the performance, Steve. He was selling
that. Oh, okay. Maybe I need to watch that bit again.
Yeah, he's absolutely.
He just looked knackered to me and then he disappeared.
Maybe he'd been doing a podcast for 2 hours.
And counting.
Yeah. Rob.
Too late, Rob. We've used your time. Sorry.
Oh, no. Yeah, so as to so there's 3 questions, weren't there? So Space Leia, I've already made my point of view clear on that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do understand what you guys are saying, and I think there's some validity to what you're saying about how much how much of a knock-on effect it has on the rest of the film. And I think that would have probably been quite detrimental to the release schedule. So I think, like I say, I think there's definitely some value in what you and Paul were saying. Luke brushing off his shoulders, I agree with Paul. I think it fit. It kind of felt a little bit weird. Took me out of the moment very, very briefly, but it did kind of. It made sense if you just think of it as him goading Kylo, and that whole exchange being about him kind of forcing Kylo to make mistakes and sort of put himself in a corner.
Yeah, trying to blind him with his own rage.
Yeah. As to Abrams coming back in and bringing back the magic for Force Awakens, no, I'm good. I wouldn't mind something in between, where it's kind of a mix of the bold and the well trodden, just to kind of round it off in a more kind of satisfactory way in terms of something final yet satisfying. Because obviously we're all going to be smarting a bit from not being able to get Carrie.
Yeah.
But like I said earlier, I'm more than happy for them to take risks. I don't have to like them all. I'd much rather they be bold than play it safe. That's why I like Rogue One so much.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I think just something crossed my mind while you were talking there about how much it's going to smart Carrie not being in that movie, and I thought this one was going to be hard, but it's just the pennies just kind of dropped that it's the next one that's really going to be difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, this is one where it can't be done.
No.
It either means a CG or a recast, and I've made my feelings clear on that. No to both.
Yeah.
But, more no to recast than CG for sure. But
why can't she just be referenced?
I think it's the only way they can do it, Paul. I think that's the only way they can do it.
All I'm talking about is
it can only be this or this.
No, I'm talking about screen time, Paul.
Yeah.
And if you weren't just being a nitpicky little curmudgeon, then you would.
Don't bring little into it.
Right, let's keep this size neutral. We're size neutral on this podcast, especially when it comes to PPs. Hey, Steve. All right, moving on.
What?
Oh God.
We're going to move on to Paul Corey's voicemail now. Paul Corey sent us. Yes.
Sorry to interject. Just wanted to let you know it's now dropped to 54% liked it from 55.
What are you talking about?
Okay.
On Rotten Tomatoes.
Dropped to 54 from 53, you said earlier.
No, I thought it was 53. It was 54 from 55.
Rob.
You heard it here last, kids.
Rob.
Yes.
What's he talking about?
Yeah,
Rotten Tomatoes.
Earlier on, he was giving us a play-by-play.
Oh, the last place I go to for movie criticism. So, okay.
That should be their tagline, shouldn't it? Rotten Tomatoes, the last place
Paul goes to.
Yeah, seriously.
All right, let's move on to
That's
Paul
frequented
Corey's.
by Paul Jones if every other website goes down.
All right, another Paul. Paul Corey's message for us for episode 100.
Hey everyone, Paul Corey here. So having been a long time follower on Twitter and listener, I thought it was best to send in a voicemail, finally. And what better time to do it than the 100th episode. So firstly, I just wanted to thank Jeremy. So I started following Jeremy after he was retweeted onto my timeline because of Star Wars. And it was long before I listened to any podcast or even knew what a podcast was. So we exchanged Star Wars talk every now and then. But I always wondered about the talk Star Wars in his header. So it took me a while for the curiosity to take over. But when it did, I dived right in and I've never looked back. I said it in my first ever Talk Star Wars 5-star review that it felt like I was sitting down with my mates, maybe in a pub, listening to just talk about stuff that has meant a lot to me all my life. And for that, I want to thank Marc, Rob, Paul and Stephen. It has been a privilege to be part of the Talk Star Wars family, which includes obviously the Commonwealth and all the others from, great bunch of lads and girls, Ads and Matt. I feel like I could go to the pub with all of you and just have a drink, and I feel like I've known you for years. Anyway, enough of the prattling on now. Thank you anyway. It has been an absolute pleasure. Bye-bye now.
Now,
that was lovely,
this is one of the voicemails that really had me choked up when I was starting to think.
Yeah, but you're always crying and
I know.
Yourself, so.
It don't take much, it seems.
I'm having some sort of midlife crisis, I think. But it's just so touching to know that these people who mean so much to us feel the same way. It's wonderful. And they've gone out of their way to send these messages in. It's top drawer stuff. I really love it.
Yeah,
it's nice. It is lovely. Yeah.
I think he's from near where my cousins are from. like Grimsby, Immingham, that kind of area. I'm throwing it out there.
All right. Okay. Well, Paul, let us know.
Yeah, Paul, seriously. Yeah, I want to know.
I think he's from a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, Grimsby.
That was a lovely message, though.
from a Grimsby, GFFA, from a Grimsby far, far away. Yeah, great message. Thank you very much, Paul. Paul did have a question on the end of that, but it was about what Rey might do in The Last Jedi, because I think he thought that we'd have episode 100 out before the release. Unfortunately, we're a couple of weeks behind because my wife keeps taking me on holidays, so we had to put the show up on blogs. It's such a challenge.
Yeah.
What you mean, Mary Sue? Don't call her Mary Sue. She'll go off on one.
All right. Should we? Thank you, Paul, for that question, and let Stephen know where you're from so that we can prove him wrong. Who wants to read Jonathan Morales?
I'll do it.
Question. Okay, go for it, Rob.
You got a long one, Rob.
Oh,
we were going to keep that out of this discussion. So Jonathan writes, okay, guys, haven't written in a while, but now that TLJ is out and I've had my first viewing with a second on the way, I figured now is the time. Spoilers ahead, although I think by the next podcast all will be revealed anyway. So here it goes. As Mark said in his written review, so many things I didn't like. Snoke's rather anticlimactic fate, Luke's ending, and especially Leia's ridiculous spacewalk. And that's not even to mention the fact that Rey's parents, the Knights of Ren, and the full reveal of the Force-back vision from TFA were all but disregarded. In fact, it seems as if Kylo's quote that you have to kill the past was meant not just for the characters in the film, but also for the storyline itself. It seems Rian Johnson was determined to not only remove the shackles of Lucas's vision of Star Wars, Skywalker Bloodline, and Luke himself, but also of what JJ established in TFA, Rey's lineage, Snoke, Knights of Ren, etc. Excuse me. I will say this film certainly branched out on its own and wasn't merely an attempt to recreate Empire Strikes Back. Although I enjoyed Kylo's rise to the darkness, I cannot help but wish these other elements had been dealt with differently. I'm curious as to your thoughts on what you would have all preferred to see with regards to Snoke and Luke's fate and Rey's lineage. Or, if perhaps you feel as I'm starting to feel, especially after 2 films, that no matter what version of these stories were released, ultimately we, as the viewers, would be critical of them. Perhaps as kids we accepted the OT as they were released and truly believed, as kids do, that those versions were the only versions possible. As adults, however, we tend to overanalyze and come up with alternate storylines that better fit our expectations, and in the process diminish our own experience of the movie that was actually released. So what would you all have preferred? Did Rian Johnson really have to kill the past to move Star Wars forward in a new direction for his upcoming trilogy? And here's a bonus question. Could JJ actually resolve some of these shortcomings by addressing these things in Episode 9? Perhaps a return of Snoke, even more distorted and deformed than before? Or Luke? Or maybe even the Knights of Ren? Or are these just the wishful thinkings of a Jedi who cannot let go of the past? Anyway, love to hear you all philosophize on this. Thanks, Jonathan M. And breathe.
Well done. Yeah, good question.
It is good. There's a couple of questions in there. Yeah.
Breakdown?
Well, I mean, after a length of message like that, it's only natural. But
I think we're all having one, yeah.
All right, so is there anything you would prefer Rian Johnson had handled differently in The Last Jedi, and can JJ retcon some of these elements in Episode 9? I'll go first because I had a bit more time with the question than you, chap. So I would rather not have had Leia's Carrie Poppins moment. I'd rather not have had the BB-ATST moment or the green milk scene because they distracted me. And simply because they distracted me, and I think on repeat viewings that won't be the case. I think losing Snoke was a shame, but maybe J.J. Abrams can make something of that, even if it's building Kylo's character into the villain into a villain with Snoke-like menace. But with one movie to go, I think that's a bit of a tall order, to be honest. But yeah, he could turn Kylo into the threat that we thought Snoke was going to be, and then Snoke would be less impactful by his absence.
Who's next?
Okay.
Paul?
All right. Yeah, I'm just going to re-quote, basically. Sorry, but I'm losing my voice enormously at this end. Right. As adults, however, we tend to overanalyze and come up with alternative storylines that better fit our expectations and in the process diminish our own experience of the movie that was actually released. Here. We saw the original trilogy when we were 8, 9, 10 years old. So our reactions to these films later as we go on, we're supposed to be trying to fulfill those previous fantasies we had as kids. That's not going to happen so much anymore because you're going to be looking past the basic storyline that was offered to us and we accepted when we were younger. I try to still do that. I want to take the film as it is, just as face value. That's why I'm not over concerned with enormous backstories on particular characters that may fleet in and fleet out of the film and so on. So, yeah, I love that line a lot.
Very insightful.
And yeah, seriously, well, it is. So, I mean, did Rian Johnson have to kill the past moving forward? No, he went in a different direction. He hasn't killed anything. Main characters, that we're still offered with now, they're still there. But we had to, certain characters have gone because it's just time to move on. Because number one, they're choosing not to be in it. Or number two, age is coming to the point where we're looking at newer, younger characters, and we're going to go forward with them. There's nothing wrong with characters coming in and out in a fleeting moment either. So the whole Snoke Phasma thing, again, I've got no issue with whatsoever.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Fair enough.
I would like. Sorry, Rob. Have you been? I've just been away
go ahead, mate.
in the loo.
I haven't been, but you go ahead.
I would have liked Rian Johnson to have not been governed by Disney at all. Like when he was making Looper, no one said, "Oh, can you try and make it a 12A so we get more money from the maybe?" Looper was a treat.
Do you feel
this
like
film was good, but I feel like he's like, well, we've got to have loads of puppets for the kids, and we've got to have that type of.
No, we're led to believe he had carte blanche on this.
Yeah, really. Never in a million years. They've just spent $5 billion on this on buying this.
You don't
no one's got carte
factually
blanche.
know that, Steve. So
Kathleen Kennedy is highly involved in every single nuance.
But you still don't factually know what he controlled on this film.
Yeah, well, I don't think I can tell that it was a film. As much as I liked it, it was a film that tried to appease everyone and not just us, and that's a hard thing to pull off.
Appease or appeal to? Appease or appeal to, Steve? Because there's a subtle difference.
Yeah, he's got to bring a new crowd in too. So it's not appease, it's appeal to.
Well, he's trying to satisfy everyone,
well,
and it's hard.
That's the point.
But appease,
if you're making
appease is an oddly
film,
negative frame, Steve, and I can hear your tinfoil hat rustling whilst you're saying it. But it's an oddly negative frame. He's trying to appeal to a broader audience, and I think he knew.
I think he's trying to appease them.
No, I think he's appealing. I think he knew when he come into this project what he needed to do, what elements there are in the Star Wars soup, and I think he knew that he needed to throw them in because he's a fan, so he knows.
Soup.
AP's soup. Well done. That's beautiful wordplay. So I think that's what he was doing. I think he was saying, well, you need the monster rally because that's a part of every Star Wars film.
Appease, appeal. Let's call the whole thing off. Right. But okay, I get what you're saying. But my point is, I would bet my right foot that it wasn't carte blanche. That they had to. Obviously, it's a money entity, and obviously I get that. But it's hard. How can anyone make a film that works for everyone? If you're making an 18 movie that's a horror movie, you know where you are. When you're trying to make a film for 45-year-olds and 8-year-olds, geez, that's hard. So I would have liked it. I would like Disney to say, actually, screw everyone under the age of 20. We're making Star Wars for just a tiny fraction of the population. We'll lose hundreds of millions, but who cares?
Some people would say that they kind of did that last year with Rogue One, with its darker tone and its more serious narrative.
I thought this was darker than Rogue One. I must have missed something.
There's moments that are kind of that flirt with that darkness, but I don't know.
No, it's certainly
they're
not dark
pretty
like
comfortable.
when Howland dies, and that was ultra
They're pretty comfortable, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So great question. Excuse my hiccup.
It's quite dark in space.
This is true. These are facts.
And that green milk
Actually, no. Isn't there some
very strange
technical thing that's like it's not? I don't know.
Rob?
Why did
I don't know.
they choose? Like somebody, I can imagine art people having hundreds of pictures of nipples and breasts on the wall and saying, "Look, we need to choose one. Udders look a bit phallic, like cow's udders, and he can't be milking one of those. It looks like something else." Like, what do we do? How could we can't make any breast look acceptable?
They did seem to spend a fair few frames on that nipple.
And there's 4 boobs.
That put me out. That put me out of the film.
If you'd have said to me when I started this podcast, you're going to have to deal with the words nipples on your podcast.
You don't have to deal with it. It's just a word.
You know the Mars film with Arnold? What's it called? The
woman with Total Recall.
Total Recall, the woman with the 3 boobies. Yeah. Like, they look just like them. In the end, they must have gone, oh, screw it. Just get someone's wife in, we'll do a plaster cast of their boobs.
I don't think that's
because they look just like boobs. I mean, they were trying to make it as innocent as possible. And they looked like
did none of you just see a guy having a drink?
No.
I
really didn't.
I did, but after they'd lingered for a fair few frames on the nipple, and it just felt. And then
he was tapping on it. Like
I don't know if this is an actual memory or if I'm filling in some detail here, but in my mind, when Rey's looking on and she's disgusted, that alien does a slow turn look at her.
It does. And that's one of the things that drove me up the wall. Was like the sort of weird kind of,
It's so weird. This is the thing we do.
This is happening. I sit here every day waiting for this.
It's kind of
I want joy left in life.
This is the thing that's happening.
I must admit, like Paul, I didn't have a massive problem with it, but I thought it took me away from the film for a few seconds.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's my problem, that it pulled me out of the movie, but
because it didn't see it.
It's just jarring. You don't expect that.
Lingered on. Let's say it just lingered on it just a fraction of a frame, like just a couple of frames too long.
The guy doesn't have a milkman delivering with a
whistle. He does.
The milking bit, right? When keep an eye out. If you go back and watch it again,
in a weird way.
There's a milking bit, but there's also a bit where it lingers for a few frames, just bang on, like front-facing nipple, and it's just weird.
I've just realised I'm the only father on this podcast.
Doesn't matter. No one wants to see an areoli on Star Wars.
I'm really worried where this is going.
Hang on, I want to know where Paul's going with this.
No, I really don't.
Pee, breastfeeding, and all the other squelchy bits, and you don't actually give them monkeys after about the third second.
I've seen it 100 times. I don't want to see it on Star Wars.
So how can that possibly be an issue in a film?
No, it's just weird.
It's not, Paul. In Honey, I Shrunk the Kid, or I don't know, the baby film with John Travolta. No, put as many nips in it as you like. I don't want to see Luke trying to squeeze milk out of a weird cow's nipple.
Guys, we're on page 5 of 9. I think maybe we should let Rob.
It's a weird hill to die on.
Let's get Rob to answer this question, and then we can move on.
Yeah, that's fine. I would have liked a few lines of dialogue alluding to Snoke's history without going into a full-blown, well, let me tell you a tale. I would have liked a little bit more on it, just so we could kind of, if you even wanted to just see that kind of exploration of it in the expanded universe, just plant a few tiny seeds to kind of then introduce a Snoke comic or a Snoke book or more talk of him in episode 9 in more depth or whatever. That would have been fine. I would have liked that. I was fine with Rey's lineage. I said it ages ago that I was good with that. Knights of Ren, I wouldn't mind seeing them come back in episode 9 as Kylo's equivalent of the Praetorian Guard, like sort of just kind of lackeys, bodyguards, and foot soldiers, all in kind of equal measure.
Or maybe a powerful apprentice. If we're to believe that they are half the dozen students that left Luke's temple,
if they're all vying for to be the next to be the underling, that would be pretty cool.
That could be
watch.
Cool. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where was it? There was something. That's.
Who put that in the chat?
Oh God, what's going on?
I
can't look at the chat because
it's a picture of the end. But it's not the shot I'm talking about. It's not. It's a very
Kylo's head on the floor.
Oh, it's.
You know what I thought when I watched that scene? I thought, is it only 4 or they're 2 tucked underneath? I shouldn't be thinking that.
It doesn't matter in any case.
It shouldn't matter to me, but I want to know: is there 6?
The Forceback vision. It's interesting that that was picked up on in Jonathan's message, because I thought about that. I didn't kind of remark upon it at the time, but I thought about it afterwards. Kylo was in full Kylo Ren garb with the Knights of Ren.
Yes, with the helmet.
Which means he wasn't on the Jedi Temple planet in that Forceback vision. So that's from a different thing.
Yes.
Which I would thought, well, that's odd. And that kind of reframes a lot of that.
It does. The danger is taking it literally, though, because as we've just seen with Luke's appearance through the Force, their appearance in the Force doesn't necessarily represent their appearance at the time. So it could be that Kylo.
It could be a metaphor or whatever. I was thinking about Snoke. If he were to come back, it's very nebulous. So forgive me if this makes less sense when I say it than when I think it. But if there's a way to manifest that Snoke is not immortal as such, but every time he can be killed he can be killed, and then he comes back more disfigured and more deformed as a result of the death. So, all those disfigurements and all those scars and all those things are situations where he's actually been through something that would kill somebody else.
Yeah. So he could be
immortal, as it were.
In Doctor Who, there's a character, I think it's called Davros. It's like he's like a half body.
He was the half Dalek, wasn't he?
Yeah. So I wonder if Snoke, if we do see Snoke again, he could be like one of those half mecha.
Oh, I hope not.
I don't imagine that they.
I don't necessarily mean like that. I just mean that he's still a physical being, but he reflects. I think I speculated on this a while back, that he might be in some way altered by the world, like this sort of environment around him, that he's, deformed because he's corrupted by things. I think originally my sort of thinking was that he would be, if a dark side, anything that happened to anything that happened to a dark side user manifested in him physically. So he was the physical embodiment of the dark side of the Force. So anything that befell somebody who was under its influence he'd sort of carry some evidence of that.
Yeah.
Hence why he had the sort of the vaguely Anakin Scar-y sort of look to him. Why he looked like sort of old Vader. So, if there was a way to kind of do, if there was a way to bring him back in 9, that would be a way I would like them to explore. Like if he's coming back weaker physically, but he might be more powerful because he's kind of tapped into the raw force. In sort of.
Hux was looking over a rather
mutilated
pathetic corpse, wasn't he? Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, but believe me, that form that was in that room, that ain't coming back.
No,
I agree with you there.
Not without some severe smelling salts. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. It did look. That was one of the things that brought me out very briefly as well. Was the look at the sort of derp face that he was pulling when he was sort of on the floor.
Yeah, he really did look all kinds of dead, didn't he?
Oh, somebody just taped me up with the laser sword in the tummy. Oh. Oh no!
All right. Okay,
he's behind you.
Jonathan, you give us a lot to think about, an awful lot to talk about, and yeah, Paul's right when he says that line of yours is incredibly insightful. All right, should we move on? We've got another voicemail. We've still got quite a lot of show to get through. Has everyone had to say everything they had to say on?
I think so. On that one.
Yeah.
Something about.
I think people will understand if we don't quite get it. If we don't quite get to every single thing, because we've already been going for 2 hours, and I don't think we're halfway through yet.
No, we're not. But we're power through. I think we're going to drop the news. This is just going to be about listener comments and stuff tonight. So, all right, this is Ian Jolliffe's Last Jedi reaction.
Hi, Ian here. Just got back a little while ago from watching The Last Jedi for the second time. After the first time, I liked it. I was kind of a 7-ish out of 10. This time, probably liking it a little bit more. Still a bit confused about how I feel about it. I know Marc has talked about it challenging us, and that's what's perhaps bothered him initially as Star Wars fans. But all the new bits, the new Force abilities, I actually really loved all of that. I didn't have a problem with it. Some of the humour was a bit misplaced. I didn't like Finn as a character this time. I thought when he was going to sacrifice himself at the end, that would have been a fitting end for me.
Oh yeah,
Canto Bite didn't bother me as much second time around. General Hux, I found in both films overacted. I don't like his character at all. The Leia floating bit was okay. I can live with that. Anything with Kylo Ren or Luke was fantastic. The cinematography, the multiple twists, but that shot when Holdo went to light speed, there was no sound. You could hear a pin drop in the theatre. It was absolutely fantastic. One of my favourite shots of any movie. So why am I not giving it a 9? I think it's expectations, really. I was convinced for some reason that it was going to be the best film ever, better than Empire. I really liked Looper that Rian Johnson did. I think that weighed in my expectations. Did I really want something different? Did I want a really dark adult Star Wars film? Maybe I did, but it's not made for my age. It's a 12A for a reason, and that wouldn't have been Star Wars either. It's for the next generation. And it's great to have all these Star Wars movies in our lives, but I do wonder whether the excitement is going to lessen the more we get them all the time. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, what do I take from this, from episode 9? I guess get less hyped beforehand, I suppose. And I suppose much like the Force, I need to keep my expectations in balance. Speak to you soon.
Oh, well said. Well said, Ian. Nice.
I mean, they're all the same. They're echoing. Why is there such a gap between? And I know, Paul, you don't like Rotten Tomatoes, but generally, I forget Rotten Tomatoes, but all reviews, critics are like in the 90s, and fans are in the 50s.
They're looking for something. On that.
They're looking for something different, Steve. We're judging it. We're judging two different things.
Yep. One's bravery, the other one's fan service.
Maybe we are
couple of thoughts on that. There's a long-standing theory that critics really love Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, kind of that trinity. That they like it so much they'll kind of not consciously overinflate scores, but they've got more. They'll give more rope to that set of properties, and they'll kind of they'll be less forgiving with others. One of the common ones I've heard, who was it? I can't remember who said it, but somebody said if you want to evaluate superhero movies, take the Marvel ones and reduce the score that sort of averages out on Rotten Tomatoes by about 15-20 points, and then do the same thing in reverse with DC, and you've got more of a reflection of what the movie's going to be like for the casual audience. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much. I've not really looked into that as to whether or not that's got any kind of quantifiable weight. The other thing is that Rotten Tomatoes is an aggregator site, and there are fewer critics than there are audience members.
So it only takes a few to like it, and it's up there.
Well, that's what I mean. The scores can be shifted in big ways by critics because there's fewer people. So one person tanking the score would make a bigger dent in it than 100 people.
Mm.
Mm. Yeah, there's something like 53,000 user reviews.
Yeah, exactly.
Normal reviews, and I don't know how many critic ones. But it's 93% on the critic one. It's up there as number one.
The critics.
That's a weird thing.
The other thing as well to bear in mind is there's a service people keep referencing called Cinema Score, which is evaluated on the first night, and they sort of poll people as they come out of the screen.
All right.
And obviously critics get to see it like right away. And so they're in that kind of mix.
Yeah.
And in Cinema Score, in their terms, every single Star Wars movie since records began has got at least an A-, except for one, which was the Clone Wars animated movie, which got a B-. Every other movie, so Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, Force Awakens, Rogue One, The Last Jedi, all got minimum A- on Cinema Score when they first came out. And no, look at how we look at those movies. I mean, look at how sort of the averages for those prequels, especially now, after it's kind of seeped into consciousness and people have had a chance to digest it, go and see it again, look at it with, in the same way we've talked about earlier, kind of look at it without those expectations and without the surprises, and evaluate it more at, face value. And as a result of that, what you find is that that you're going to get the extreme reactions at the very beginning of a film's life, and over time that will start to
the less considered and less nuanced reactions when
you'll get more of those.
If you'd got my reaction when I walked out of the screen, it would have been very different from the reaction I gave maybe 24 hours later when I'd had time to think about it, weigh it up.
If you'd gone straight on online, you were very restrained. I was very impressed by this. If you'd gone straight online and told people what you thought of the film, that would have changed things for people.
Yeah, and
as
I knew it wasn't a true reflection of my opinion on the film because I'd had a blast, and there was just a few. And what I'd left with was just a few things that bugged me, and that wasn't really reflective of my actual opinion. My actual opinion came not just in my written review when I'd had time to sort of work things out for myself, but after my second viewing when I thought, but those things don't bother me anywhere near as much now. There's still a couple of holdovers. They might diminish in time, but they don't bug me anywhere near as much now. So, all right, Ian, thank you for your message. Let's move on because we've got a lot still to get to. So we're going to go over to Jaden from Texas.
Before we do, Steve, Steve's. Oh, I was about to say Steve's going to leave us, but there he goes.
Oh, has he jumped off? Has he?
Yeah, he was just talking about it he was just signing off in the chat.
Yeah. I can't see the chat.
I thought I'd bring it up. No, I know that's why I was bringing it up.
Okay,
well, he's already gone.
Steve's had to drop out, but he will be back on the next episode. So Jaden in Texas sends us this. I think we'll do this one point at a time, and let's keep it brief because we're going to nastily overrun. So, greetings from Dallas, Texas, USA. I really enjoy your podcast each week and had a few thoughts on what I would love to see for episode 9. So, point number 1, Knights of Ren being the reason as to why the call for assistance in episode 8 went unanswered. Snoke may have strategically set them up in various planets that would have been valued to the Resistance, and they intercept the call. What do we think of that? That the Knights of Ren might have been out there doing some dirty deeds for Snoke?
I'd never thought of that. That's quite interesting. What I'm more interested in is, obviously, I think the call for help's going to come, but at the same time, Kylo's going to have to realise I need help too, and that's when he's going to call them back in.
Yeah, that's cool.
I like that. That's a good way of doing it.
Yeah.
That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's good. I like that a lot. Rob, you got anything to add to that?
I like that. I like the idea that, I mean, they did mention in the opening crawl that Snoke had dispatched kind of, military force to start to kind of spread throughout the galaxy.
Yeah.
But they're probably pretty high ranking in some sort of militia, so they may be part of those forces.
Yeah, they're still with us. One night on the bridge of one of these gigantic Star Destroyers on one of the what are those big, the Dreadnought Star Destroyers. That would be really interesting to see. All right, point 2. Kylo's focus in 9 is to grow strong enough to re-establish his connection to Rey in order to find her and the fledgling rebellion.
Does he need to become stronger to do that? I got the impression
I'm wondering if he can do that
control.
anyway now.
Yeah. I got the feeling that was something that neither of them had any control over. Maybe he harnesses it to do it at will rather than having it just happen whenever.
I think
I think he needs to train up.
In The Last Jedi, Snoke kind of fesses up to, it was me. I connected your minds because I needed to force you into this situation. So maybe Kylo and Rey can't do it.
They can, though. We saw it afterwards.
Oh, they did it after, didn't they, on Crate?
They can't do it at will. That's what I'm saying. So maybe he needs to learn how to do it at will, but they can't. Otherwise, it just happens whenever.
That is true.
At the same time, he'll do it as a connection purely to turn the screw because she's one of the figureheads for the rebellion now. So
yeah. True.
Well, and the other side of that question is as well how powerful Rey needs to get to shut him down and shut him out and keep him at bay. Because if he's developing the ability to try and connect and find her, she needs to put up a firewall.
That runs the risk of going a bit Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah,
in my mind, that's like the occlumency or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
he has to learn from Snape in order to stop himself from
opening his mind to
penetrable by Voldemort's mind probing.
Yes, exactly. All right, point number 3. The rebellion leadership shows a darker side to them by creating a plan to assassinate key members of the key worlds and making it seem as though the First Order is responsible, leading to their joining the rebel cause. Also building towards a shift in power that puts a certain member of the rebellion into a position of supreme leadership. That's quite interesting.
Like the idea, won't see it.
Yeah, it's we saw some of the morally grey stuff in Rogue One, didn't we? Like Saw's Splinter Cell, that being more militant and causing a problem for the rebellion as it was trying to gain some political footholds. So, I mean, they are outnumbered at the moment. Maybe they will need to dip into the dirty tricks, but
I don't see it happening.
Could be harmful.
End of Last Jedi suggested to me that saga movies are going to be very much good versus evil, very not morally ambiguous, which is disappointing.
The black hat, the white hat.
Yeah, I think that's how it's going to be.
So it always was.
I'm disappointed by that because I was hoping the DJ and Finn thing was building to a bit more complexity, but I don't think that's what's going to happen.
Paul?
No, I mean, to be honest, I think the most extreme facet we've got right now is Poe, and he wouldn't go to these depths.
No, the lesson he's taken away from this is how to be a leader and be and set an example, isn't he? So this would be the wrong.
They're honourable to the core as much as they can be. So
good points all. Point number 4. After dispatching Kylo and the First Order, is severely crippled, Rey, Finn, and Chewie seek out young Force-sensitive kids. Rey receives training from Luke Skywalker's Force Ghost and is told that while her parents were nobody, her grandfather was, and Obi-Wan appears. Poe and Rose are key members of the rebellion. The new trilogy ends with Rey on Tatooine and the twin sons behind her back as she says to her students, Lesson 1, why the Jedi must rise.
No, it doesn't make sense.
You don't like that?
The light rises to meet the darkness. If they just dispatch the First Order, then the last thing the Jedi need to do is rise at all. That's how you get back to prequel era, where they're over zealous and bureaucratic because they've been able to swell. Unless
you consider the books that Rey somehow came into the possession of on the Falcon, unless they contain texts that ultimately the Jedi, when we meet them in Coruscant, had ignored the tenets central to their existence. Perhaps Qui-Gon was more representative of what a true Jedi is, and the bureaucrats, the almost police monks, military police monks that we meet aren't really what the Jedi should have been. And that's what Luke was trying to end.
Yeah.
When they should have been more like Qui-Gon.
Don't you then end up kind of invalidating Yoda by putting him in a weird juxtaposition of the mischievous puppet who brings down the Jedi tree, but at the same time also part of the original problem in the first place?
Yeah, but that ship's kind of sour, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but they're kind of taking steps away from that. I mean, necessarily, for better or worse, but just they're consciously making efforts to distance themselves from that prequel era mindset for anything like that. So they're kind of, this is one of those things about the film that I didn't really gel with. Was I liked the idea of I didn't mind the Jedi ending if there was something more measured and having learned something to take its place. But if she just takes the text that they were working from, they're just going to make the same mistakes again.
What I'm saying is that they may have been the text that they should have been working from and weren't.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
So
what I mean is
the mistakes were made by a generation of.
Would certainly explain Luke's vocal position.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true. The other thing as well was I'm not feeling Obi-Wan as a lineage. I'm just not.
No,
it just doesn't. It doesn't.
I think this Junkers in the desert, in the Pauper's Grave, and the desert thing might be something to pay a bit more attention to, because it does, and we get the point again, sort of illustrated still further at the end of the movie with the little stable boy and his broom.
He's probably nobody. So
I really think that's what that was not an accident. What Ryan did there, that was to seed the ending. Yeah,
she's special because she's special. She's not special because of her bloodline.
She's special because she's been chosen by the Force to rise to meet the darkness.
Yeah, and she's chosen to acknowledge it. She could have very easily just said, "No, I'm fine here, thanks."
She's answered the call. Yeah,
take my quarter portion and I'll be done with it. But
60 portions.
60 portions.
Yeah, the whole why the Jedi must rise bit. It's a bit Ender's Game, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of.
Possibly. I mean, it is one of those things where you can bring what you want to these movies. We do it all the time, don't we? Oh, I want this to happen. I think that should happen.
Yeah.
They will always find a way to surprise you,
and then we're disappointed with the result.
we can be.
I quite like the fact that none of our speculations turned out to be true.
Well, some of them did, but
there's something entertaining about that certain futility.
Yeah, but it's like we've always said. We speculate and theorise about this stuff until
in a job.
The cows come home. But
you say again, sorry, Paul.
Keeps us in a job.
Yeah, we've been saying, it's nice that we don't get everything right, because who wants to be able to guess this stuff? We shouldn't be able to guess this stuff. And The Last Jedi is the extreme example of that being done right, where, we didn't all say, I took the position that we're going to redeem Kylo Ren, but we're going to lose Rey to the dark side. And it looked for all the world like it was heading in that direction. And then they said, nope, no course change here. She's good through and through. This guy's just getting darker. And I left with a big smile on my face thinking, I'm so glad that didn't go the way I saw it going, because I need to be surprised by these things. How terrible it would have been if I'd have come out and said, well, I called it. So, where's the wonder in that?
what's nice is there were loads of little things we'd read about and heard about that did turn out to be true, but not quite as we'd expect. Not quite as we'd been led to understand. Like the Luke breaking down a hut with Kylo and Rey on Ahsoka. They did that, but he wasn't there.
Yeah.
I said it was a joint vision, though.
You did.
Yeah. See, Paul? We did get stuff right.
Yeah.
You just have to remember back for it. There's one thing, actually, one really quick thing I really liked about the movie. And again, this was one of those things that I was hoping would tie into this moral ambiguity. Both Luke and Kylo had two different versions of what happened on that night.
Yeah.
And neither one was wrong.
Yeah.
Nobody was telling a full lie, and nobody was telling the full truth.
It was interpretation.
But I liked that. But let's say by the end of the film, it's like that had never happened because it was just like good versus evil again. Shame.
It's good, Jaden. I like these questions. I like the way you're thinking, and I like the fact that this is starting the ball rolling on our 2-year speculation about episode 9. And I just suspect that this is going to be enormous fun kicking these things about and trying to stay one step ahead of these writers that always get the jump on us. It's going to be enjoyable. If nothing else, it's going to be enjoyable. So thanks for that, Jaden. Let's hear more from you. It's going to be great. Got a lot more listeners coming our way from the US now. Have you noticed? Really,
it's awesome. Yeah,
still really starting to pick up some speed over there and get some interesting voices to the thing.
I've got a story to tell you about that once we're off air, Mark.
Okay, mate. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's go over to another voicemail. This one is from our old friend Matt Keaton.
Hello, everybody. Matt from Australia. How you going? Congratulations, guys. Mark, Paul, Stephen, Rob, 100 episodes. That's pretty good. I guess with all the extras, the After Dark sides and the dailies and the Kessel runs and all the stuff you put out there for the Patreons, it's probably closer to 1,000 shows. But, 100 mainline shows. That's pretty good. I came to listen to you guys. I was chasing podcasts to take to work. And I'd go into iTunes and I would listen to the first 30 seconds of each Star Wars podcast on the list. And I'd be listening and I go, nah, these guys are crap, or these guys are idiots, or these guys think they're funny and they're not. And then I got to the TSW one, and I hear this guy say that they're part of the official podcast of talkstarwars.co.uk, and I went, oh, ears pricked up, official Star Wars. So I assumed it was a genuine thing, like he had some link to Star Wars. So that's why I downloaded a heap, took him to work, and realised later on that you guys are just, fans, really, really devoted fans. So if it hadn't been for my ignorance, I may have missed out on the Commonwealth and, all the other guys around the globe that now broadcast under the Star Wars Commonwealth banner. I would have missed out on the VIPs becoming a member through Patreon and the amazing bunch of supportive guys and gals you got in there. So now on to The Last Jedi. My review of it, I loved it. I took my 2 boys to it. We saw it opening day. They loved it. We loved it. I loved it. They loved it. So it was really good. I've avoided the spoilers. I wasn't even listening to the daily podcast for the last week, just in case, because I know Mark's got a report on most stuff, but I was trying to keep clear, went in there with a very positive attitude and really enjoyed it. I was not a fan of The Force Awakens when I left that, but The Last Jedi, that was so much better. And I just want to say Merry Christmas to all you guys. Have fun with your family and friends. Hope you get lots of presents and hopefully many copies of Hindsight distributed from Santa's bulging sack. Have a good one, everybody. Love yous.
Oh, what a gent. What an absolutely superb gent. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, much love, Matt.
Yeah, huge love.
Who's he? Sorry?
It's just a little writer that we know, Paul, kind of tangentially.
Kind of a big deal.
Kind of a big deal, yeah. No, awesome guy. I love the fact that he that official podcast, talkstarwars.co.uk, snagged him in. I thought that was really, really pretty sweet, because that was designed to do. It was designed to add some credibility to us when we got the thing moving. But there you go. I never lied. I didn't say we were a part of Star Wars. it's part of Talk Star Wars. So yeah, great stuff. Thank you, Matt. I'm glad that you all had such a great experience with The Last Jedi as well. Obviously, Matt and Paul are very much of the same mind about that film, being so tightly wound as they are with hindsight. Obviously, two minds working as one there. I'm going to find myself out of the loop if I'm not careful.
It's a bit harsh. Both smart guys.
Yeah. All right. Let's go on to Katie's, the new Knight of the Commonwealth, Katie Stubbs. She says, "Hey guys, hope you're all well. Congratulations on reaching 100 episodes. You were the first Star Wars podcast I checked out, and I'm so happy I did. Since I found you, I've been introduced to so many awesome folks and other great podcasts. A vast amount of Star Wars knowledge you guys have laid upon my brain. So because of you guys, Star Wars have become such an important part of my life, and I thank you very much." So the question, continuing the series of questions, what is your favourite Alec Guinness Obi-Wan moment? Mine has got to be when he lets Vader strike him down. The words behind the decision, "I'll become more powerful than you can ever imagine." And he did. By the time you are recording this, I'll also be on my second viewing of The Last Jedi. Love that film. Anyway, hope you all have a great Christmas. Looking forward to seeing you in the new year. Yeah, we're doing a VIP meetup in the new year in January. And plenty of people are coming down. We're all going to go and see the film together, which is going to be awesome. So, favourite Obi-Wan Kenobi moments, but Alec Guinness only. Gentlemen, far away.
It's a little diluted, isn't it? We don't get many. I don't know if it's the whole scene. I don't know if it's musical score, but just Ben introducing himself to Luke at Ben's house with the lightsaber, R2 playing the hologram, obviously. Just that whole sort of 4 or 5 minute section. And you are to come, you should come with me to Alderaan, all those kind of bits and pieces. I do seriously like that whole, okay, this is what's on the table, and this young kid, this poor naive young kid, all of a sudden getting a realization that he may be from something bigger, sort of thing, and he sees the father's weapon, sort of thing. So that whole bit's cool.
Cool.
Paul's kind of said exactly. He's going to hit the nail on the head for me. That's my moment too, for similar reasons as well, because it brings, especially with the context of the prequels, it's it kind of brings Obi-Wan back into something he almost certainly thought he was shot of in the Galactic Civil War. He probably thought that he was going to be away from it for a while, and then suddenly he's pulled right back in, and you start to see him kind of.
He's the gentle hermit, but he's prepared to put the foot back forward again, isn't he?
He very quickly goes back into sort of serious mode.
Yeah, good calls. Mine's exactly the same scene. It's for a slightly different moment in that scene. It's when he's lying about Vader, about how your father was killed by this character, Darth Vader, and the nuanced performance that Sir Alec gives in that scene, I just love. It leaves it open to interpretation. It must have stimulated Lucas to think, I can retcon this to turn it into a lie. Yeah. I just think he does such stunning work in that scene. It's so nuanced and so delicate and so sensitively handled. It's a magical moment, and I think most of our saga is built on that moment, to be honest, because it gave Lucas the chance to change some of the story he'd committed to in light of Sir Alec's performance. So that would be my moment. But it's interesting that we all pull from the same scene there.
Yeah. Paul's just shared something in the chat, a video of that's the scene from New Hope with the interspersed bits from the prequels, right? All the sort of flashbacks and stuff. I love
like the Rogue One.
It's really well done.
A bit like the Rogue One, the trailer that we never saw for Rogue One.
Yeah.
I'll check this video out at some point.
Yeah.
All right, we've got another voicemail. This is the last one, I believe. Last one of the night. This is from our friend Marc Airy over at the Talk Star Wars Toy Box podcast. So this is what Mark's got to say.
Hello, lads. Just a quick one to congratulate you all on your 100th episode. I started listening about episode 29, around about Celebration last year. Did binge on the early episodes and started sponsoring with Blue Harvest. And I'm lucky enough to have my own podcast under the Talk Star Wars umbrella. Hopefully, it will last as long as yours. As I'm on, I'll ask you a quick question. How will Rey's new lightsaber look? What colour will it be? Will it be a new style? I personally think it'll be double-bladed, like a staff, and it'll be green. There you go. Congrats again. And here's to the next 100 episodes.
Nice. Thank you very much, Mark. Before we dive into answering Mark's question, I very cleverly put Mark's alongside Charles's question because he also asked about Rey's lightsaber. So should we read Charlie's question and then answer both at the same time?
Sure.
Seeing as they're on the same subject. So Charlie says, hi guys, haven't seen the last... Oh, sorry, Paul, did you want to read this? I know your voice is a little bit...
Go ahead, mate. Seriously.
Yeah, okay. He says, hi guys, haven't seen The Last Jedi. There's a lot that needs to be resolved in episode 9. I've had a thought about Anakin's lightsaber and what it may lead to. Spoilers for those listening who have not yet seen the film. It's not likely that there's going to be anyone listening to this that haven't seen the film now, but it's good of him to give a spoiler warning. So following the confrontation between the Praetorian Guard and in Snoke's throne room, Rey and Ben find themselves having a difference of opinion on where the future could lead. They battle it out using the Force over Anakin's lightsaber, splitting it in half as Holdo slams her ship into the supremacy at light speed. As Leia and Rey discuss the future of the rebellion, no longer the Resistance, in the closing moments of the film, Rey is asking how they can build from this, whilst holding Anakin's broken lightsaber. We can see the crystal still seemingly intact. Given Rey's proficiency with her staff, and of course they hit on that quite heavily in this movie, didn't they? Having grown up using it as her only line of defence against the dangers of Jakku, and also considering she never discarded it despite coming into ownership of the far superior lightsaber, what do you think the chances are of us seeing Rey craft her very own double-bladed lightsaber? Like a light staff. Given that she will no doubt receive guidance from Luke's Force Spirit, or perhaps even Yoda's or even Obi-Wan's, there's no reason the knowledge of the lightsaber crafting couldn't be passed on. Or perhaps the book she liberated from when she left Arc 2 may have some rudimentary lightsaber designs within its pages, maybe similar to Kylo Ren's. Using the blue crystal from Anakin's lightsaber in conjunction perhaps with Luke's green crystal, or even Snoke's ring, hence the working title name of the movie. Personally, I think it could be great to see a double-bladed lightsaber with two separate colours, as I don't think we've seen that in canon before. It would definitely be a unique way to give Rey her own identity as the new Last Jedi. What do you guys make of this? I'm still not 100% sure of what I make of The Last Jedi. I definitely enjoyed myself, but I think a second viewing is very much needed. Thanks for reading. Hope to catch up with you soon. Charles Cheeseman. So Rey with a lightsaber staff along the same lines as Darth Maul's, but one blue crystal, one green, Luke's crystal, or maybe even Snoke's black obsidian stone from his ring. What do we think?
I think she's going to bastardize her staff and Luke's lightsaber.
Okay.
Basically into one magnificent double-bladed staff, basically.
It seemed to be a fair old size, that crystal inside that thing, didn't it? So maybe it could power two blades.
I also think she'll probably think it honourable to keep part of the mechanism from both objects as well.
Yeah, and the thing is about the crystals, they do call to the Jedi, and that's certainly called to her in The Force Awakens.
Yeah, we saw that in the last film, didn't we? So.
Rob, what do you think?
This is something that it clearly I don't know if I've read too much into this or something, but it seemed like in the film they kind of made a point of showing her gradually moving away from the staff and kind of favouring the lightsaber. They had that training montage on Ahch-To where she's sort of sparring with the Rock.
Yeah.
And she's using the staff initially, and then she sort of changes her mind and starts using the saber. And obviously she goes, over the top and takes off the chunk of the Rock, and that leads to a sort of comedy bit. But I thought that was kind of the first stage of her kind of moving away from the staff and moving towards the lightsaber. So I thought, if she goes for a lightsaber, I think she might just rebuild, salvage what she can from the Skywalker lightsaber, because she's a scavenger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She might have learned enough to kind of fudge it together. But But I don't know. I mean, she's obviously got some experience with the double-ended staff, so there's no reason why she couldn't. So I think you guys are, probably not wrong that there's certainly a good chance of it. I don't know about the two different colours thing. I don't know where she'd get another crystal from. I think she would, like you say, it's a bit of a chunky crystal, so I think she would just end up kind of maybe with two slightly thin. Maybe she could have slightly thinner blades because it's a crystal designed initially to power one.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, I could go either way at this point. But like I said, it would just kind of, from the film, it felt to me like she was working her way towards the single blade.
Yeah, I think that's highly likely that it will be a single blade and her making her own hilt around that crystal, seeing as that crystal was the thing that called to her. There is, in Luke's hut on Ahch-To, there's the red Sith crystal that's set into a necklace. We don't know where that's come from yet, but there's a chance that she could pop that in. There was some concept art for, I think it was for The Force Awakens, where we saw a Jedi with a lightsaber staff, and one end was red and one end was blue. Okay. But that does send quite mixed messages to us as an audience, because obviously they register different things. Mm-hmm. So I think probably a rebuild of the Skywalker lightsaber, but it will be Rey's lightsaber, her own design. I think that's highly likely at this point, with the white, with the blue Skywalker crystal at its heart. But I do like the idea of seeing another double-ended lightsaber in Star Wars, because they are so cool. Or maybe two that clip together to become one. We saw some of that stuff with the Praetorian Guard. So if she takes a lead from that, and she ends up with two lightsabers, maybe like Ahsoka, one little lightsaber, one normal lightsaber, and they clip together and make a lightsaber staff that she can use like her old staff. That would kind of interesting.
Have we seen a situation where a Jedi has a light staff, one of a better word?
Not in the movies.
That'd be cool.
Just Maul is the closest I think we've seen.
Yeah. It would be kind of interesting.
She's been using the staff forever and a day, so play to your strengths.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it does make sense. It does make sense, big time.
She might even find that could be kind of cool, actually, if she's, as she's building this lightsaber, she ends up using bits from her staff, and over time she comes to realize that in itself is scavenged from old lightsaber parts from bygone eras.
Yeah.
Because that'd be a nice way of sort of tying in that whole, the legend of the Jedi being how much of it's real and how much of it's legend.
Yeah, and she's had it there all along. The parts of history with her all along. That's kind of cool too. Oh, I like that. Awesome stuff. Right, we are getting close to the end, chaps, because we're nearly at 3 hours. Let's quickly do Casey's Corner, and then we're just going to talk about, I think, maybe just one of these news items for episode 9. So we'll wrap up episode 100, looking into the future of Star Wars with this episode 9 story. So, Rob, did you want to take... I'm not going to bother building a break into this episode.
That's fine.
Do you want to just take Casey's Corner this week?
Sure. Yep. So Casey writes thusly. Hey guys, sorry for sending this so late in the week. I hope I'm not too late for this week's recording. It depends on when you sent it, but potentially not. With the new movie coming out, there's been a ton of talk about spoilers lately, which got me to thinking. I want to know what your rules are on spoilers. At what point do you think it's okay to discuss a movie in public? I used to go by the rule that you shouldn't discuss a movie if it was still in theatres. If somebody hasn't seen it by the time it was out of the theatres, then it clearly wasn't that important to them. They shouldn't get worked up about spoilers. I pulled back from that rule after somebody points out that some people might be really tight on money and don't want to spend the money for a trip to the theatres. At the same time, I've had people get mad at me for spoiling a movie that came out 2 years ago, and at that point I had no sympathy for them. I don't want to ruin a movie for anybody, but I also don't think people should have to feel like they're never allowed to talk about movies. What are your thoughts? What are our rules on spoilers as individuals?
Well, you lead with, have you seen blah?
Yeah, that's a good start. I think that works in every situation.
Yeah.
And then you go from there, really. I don't really know what to add.
I think that's perfectly reasonable.
If you're going to say, look, have you seen this like this? If they say, no, never been. Oh, my God, it's fantastic, but I won't tell you because blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
I've had situations where people looked at me in the eye and they've like, no, I have absolutely no interest in that at all.
Yeah.
Then I've actually spoiled it for them. And they said, oh, that sounds really good. But yeah, it's... we're getting better at it. Do you remember the whole Sixth Sense thing?
Yes.
I went to see that quite late, and I knew hundreds of people that saw it. But fair play, none of them gave me a peep on the big, the big climax.
I didn't have that spoil either.
That was great. So it's, if there's the opportunity to allow people to go in and have that extra bit of fun because they don't know, then offer it, of course. But it's just, dipsticking the audience and seeing, what's plausible in the conversation to come.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair way of looking at it. My point of view has always been, you definitely don't talk. Obviously, being on social media makes it tricky because you have to gauge that for a worldwide audience potentially. So with that in mind, I tend to leave it a week to 2 weeks before I start talking about a film if I've seen it. That's assuming I've seen it immediately. So like with Last Jedi, I haven't mentioned it in any depth story-wise on Twitter yet because it's been out for a week and a half, which to me doesn't quite feel like enough. By the time next week, I might have changed. After Christmas, I will have almost certainly softened and changed my mind. But in the meantime, I'm still kind of, thinking about it in terms of it's not been out for that long yet. Yeah. As to if I haven't been to the cinema right away to see something, then I kind of consider it fairer game. So I'll still kind of leave it 2 weeks or so from the release itself, but I'm less likely to worry about it because generally, if it's not Star Wars, I'm terrible at getting to the cinema. So if I've managed to get there, it's probably been long enough that the bulk of people who are going to care about it are going to have seen it by now.
Yeah,
but I've never,
That's a good segue into my position on spoilers as well, which is consider the discussion group that you're a part of.
Yeah.
So with Star Wars, I'm in this community with all these people that are deeply invested, and I know whether or not they've seen the film. And in our social network, we separate out and build other groups, like a secondary group that might be a place just to go for spoilers. So if you're happy to be spoiled, then go in there. It's like another room, and you go into another room and talk with hushed voices about this thing so as not to spoil it for anyone else.
Yeah.
You just don't, like Paul said, you dipstick the audience. It's taking the temperature of that discussion group, and when it shifts to a point where the majority of people have seen the movie and they want to speak freely about it, those who haven't seen it excuse themselves, and we can move forward from there. I don't know if we're almost at that point now in the Talk Star Wars community where we are speaking freely, and I think everybody that had excused themselves is slowly coming back and getting caught up with what they'd missed while they were dark. But yeah, for me, I don't wander around bellowing at the top of my voice in public areas about things.
I have no time for people who do that with any kind of. If they're doing it loudly, that's.
And I don't do it digitally on social media either. And when I put something out, it's usually a written piece on the website, and then at the front of that it says major spoilers follow, or minor spoilers follow, or proceed with caution. There'll be a warning in there somewhere, and the same with the daily, because I know. Like one of the voicemails this evening said, I dropped out. I think it was Matt. I dropped out of the daily podcast because Marc has to cover these things, and that's right. But I buried it. I went to the non-spoiler stories first, and I buried the spoiler right at the end, so you could get some of the podcast and then jump out. And that's kind of, I think, that's my position on this. And doing what we do, it's very difficult. But I think I consider the discussion group I'm a part of. I take its temperature. And when people are ready to discuss it openly, then we all naturally do it. But until then, I will take every possible course of action to ensure that people aren't spoiled. If I slip up from time to time, it's just because I'm doing so much that I might let something out. But hopefully it's not some of the marquee items. Like some of the stuff, I've been so careful. Some of the stuff on the... I lost my train of thought there. See, I looked at the chat. Crazy, I should never look at the... Yeah, crazy. I should never look at the chat. Anyway, that's it. Some of the stuff on the spoilers at the heart of The Last Jedi, like Yoda, Luke's death. I haven't seen that stuff cross my Twitter feed yet.
No.
And maybe I'm lucky, but I know some people have been hit with that, but I hadn't seen that. Even though I knew it, I haven't seen it sort of clumsily thrown out there, so...
Yeah. One thing that's also never a bad thing is to ask the following questions. Before you start talking about the movie, have you seen it? No. Are you worried about spoilers? I'd rather not know them. Okay, I'll talk to you about it another time then. Or if they say no, then you can tell them. It doesn't take much. It's just kind of that just kind of comes down to common courtesy, really, doesn't it? If it's somebody you want to be able to talk to about films later, you're a bit more careful about making sure you don't ruin their enjoyment of this one.
Yeah.
Because next time they're going to go, well, I don't want to talk to you about films because you ruined that film for me last time.
Yeah.
You know, you told me about Mr. Bob D. Bobberson.
Oh, not the Bob D. Bobberson spoiler.
I know. I'm sorry. Yeah, I said I was sorry.
He dies.
Yeah.
Oh, Paul, you've just made it. You just compounded it even worse.
Spoilers for the Bob D. Bobberson
trilogy. Bob D. Bobberson games.
Yeah. Sorry, the spoilers for the movie I made up just now. You know. Yeah, we talked about this on the Crazy Train podcast once about spoiler policy. I know there are some people who don't think, you know, you talk to them about what they consider spoilers, and you get the feeling they've forgotten what it was like to see that film the first time. Because, you know, I know somebody who said that they couldn't think of a single film that was ruined by knowing the ending before you went in, and I wasn't on because it was on a podcast. I heard it, and I wasn't on it. Otherwise, I'd have just yelled the words "The Usual Suspect" at them, just shout in their face.
Yeah,
you know, there are absolutely movies that are made by that, and Star Wars is the weirdest one in a way because I don't talk about any of the plot because there's so little in the trailers. It all feels like spoilers to me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's, you know, obviously there's some stuff you can talk in vagaries about, like, oh, I didn't really like how they treated the Snoke storyline. That's fine. People know going in, there's something that's divisive, but they don't necessarily, that doesn't give them anything to go by in terms of what's going to happen, because it's all subjective. They might, you know, he might have lived and I wanted to see him die, but they don't know that unless they listen to Talk Star Wars, where I might have speculated on it. But you know,
frames of reference.
If I've learned one thing about a decent chunk of my friends, they don't listen to the things I do. But thankfully, a decent chunk of them do, and I'm very grateful for it.
There you go. Well, that was an awesome question, Casey. Thank you very much. Yeah, spoilers. We do give them a lot of thought, and we do exercise as much control as possible. And yeah, there are some people out there that are just taking advantage of the situation. Yeah. Rob Phillips shared something in the spoiler group just on the run up to The Last Jedi, which was just a disgusting, deliberate spoiler attempt by someone on, I think it was Instagram. It was just deliberately going out of his way to ruin it. Yeah, just to ruin it.
They had was it Variety who had an article that put a massive spoiler in it, and when somebody called him on it on Twitter, they were almost proud of themselves because it was, you know, probably because it got interest.
Nice.
But yeah.
Oh well, there you go. All right, let's wrap up this enormous bumper edition, episode 100 of Talk Star Wars, with one piece of news for Star Wars Episode 9, and that is that Episode 9 now has a working title and a new production company. So the production company for Star Wars Episode 9 is called Carbonado Industries UK Limited, and the working title is Black Diamond. And here is the connection. This comes from Fantha Tracks, which is a recently launched site, a Star Wars site, which is doing some really astonishing work over there. And they've found this. I think it was on Wikipedia. This is the definition. So Carbonado, commonly known as black diamond, is the toughest form of natural diamond. It is an impure form of polycrystalline diamond consisting of diamond, graphite and amorphous carbon. It's found primarily in alluvial deposits in Central African Republic and in Brazil. Its colour is black or dark grey, and it's more porous than other diamond. Now, that's just sort of suggesting that there's a connection between the name of the production company and the name of the working title for the movie, which suggests that some thought's gone into it. It's not just like the trivial thing. The way Space Bear came into being was that Ryan said he'd written himself into a corner in one draft of the script and said, Space Bear comes in and rescues everybody. And that's where the name came from, which I thought was kind of charming and fun. But this seems like there might be more going on. Now, we mentioned it earlier when in Charlie's email, he'd mentioned the black stone in Snoke's ring in The Last Jedi. And the black snow, what we thought was a kyber crystal in Snoke's ring, the black stone is actually a piece of obsidian from catacombs below Vader's castle on Mustafar. So I wondered if Black Diamond could be a colloquial reference to the stone at the heart of Snoke's ring.
Or Vader's castle.
Yeah, it could be, It could be Vader's castle.
If we're following Kylo and his development, he's going to be looking to inspire. He's going to have no inspiration. He's got nobody to teach him, show him the way forward now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's going to start looking further back into, Vader and trying to kind of make his way from there.
And what's there?
Yeah.
Because not only is that the site of Anakin's fall to Obi-Wan, but there's something deep beneath it too. Something
is there?
Rich in the dark side, yeah.
Okay.
And that might be why Snoke's drawn to it, and that's why he wears a piece of this obsidian as jewellery, because there's something more significant beneath the foundations of Vader's castle. So that could be quite interesting. Also, Carbonado, if that doesn't make you think of carbonite, then you're doing something wrong as a Star Wars fan. It's kind of
makes me think of pasta. Is that wrong?
It's making me think of pasta.
I might be a bit peckish. That probably doesn't help.
Yeah, now I'm hungry. Thanks for that. All right,
you're welcome.
I thought that might be a nice way to wrap up episode 100 of the podcast, as we look forward to episode 9 of Star Wars, which is 2 years away, which should bring us to around about episode 200. So there you go.
Oh yeah, of course.
Predictions.
We'll have to do some odd random ones that just come throwing into the mix, like special bonus ones.
Yeah, we'll work it out. We'll reverse engineer it so that 200 lands around about the same time as the next big release. All right, guys, we ready to wrap this thing up?
Yes.
Paul, you still got a voice over there?
Yeah, barely, really. Yeah.
All right, so thank you very much for listening to Talk Star Wars for 100 episodes. Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for supporting us.
That's why I've got no voice.
That's it. You've talked yourself into the ground. You can continue to support us and what we do now and what we plan to do in the future by becoming a member of the Talk Star Wars community and signing up to our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/Talk Star Wars. You'll get a bunch of free stuff over there, but you'll become part of this magnificent community. You've heard from a lot of them this evening, wonderful people from all over the world. It is just one of the most rewarding parts of what we do, this circle of friends that just keeps growing. So head over there, find out what we're about at patreon.com/Talk Star Wars, and then jump in and take advantage of that Patreon program. Don't forget also to leave us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts and take advantage of our Ron Burgundy guarantee. So whatever you write in there, we'll read it as long as it's clean. So if you've got something to promote, stick it in a review in there and we will read it out. And also your questions and your comments, you can email those to us at talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on one of our many social channels such as Twitter, Facebook, YouTube and Instagram, to name but a few. And with that said, guys, where can people find you between episodes?
You'll find me at moviescorenews.com, where I don't croak quite so much.
It's Twitter. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at RobWadeVision and emotionally14.com.
Excellent. You can find Stephen on Twitter at Stephen_Ware, or just by searching for Wild About Nature. He's also on YouTube. Check out his channel, Wild About Nature. It's awesome naturey things there that are wild or something. Does what it says on the tin. You can find everything I do at talkstarwars.co.uk, and I'm on Twitter at TalkStarWars. Once again, thank you so much for the support and paying attention to us as we ramble on about this thing we love so much. This is dropping on Christmas Day. So season's greetings to you. Happy holidays, whatever it is you're celebrating. Celebrate it with the people that you love and have a great time and be safe. Guys, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, that's pretty eloquently put.
No, bar humbug? Is that another way of putting that? Bar humbug? All right, then also head over to StarWarsCommonwealth.com and check out our partner shows like the Tumbling Saber, Generation X-Wing, Rogue Squadron, the Skyhoppers podcast, the Nerd Room, and San Diego Sabers. Everybody is linked there, so you can find all the hosts, all their shows, the quality work they're doing. And if you download our show notes from the description of this episode, you've got links to everything we do and everything they do right from that one handy, albeit rather chunky document this week. Once again, thank you for the support. Thank you for interacting. It's been a great 100 episodes, and now we're on to the next lot. We'll see you next week.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Do you want me to do your Turtles bit, Paul?
No.
Talk Star Wars is a proud member of the Star Wars Commonwealth Podcast Network. Find us at StarWarsCommonwealth.com alongside
the Tumbling Saber Podcast,
the Generation X-Wing Podcast,
Rogue Squadron Podcast,
the TSW Roundtable,
the Skyhoppers Podcast,
the Nerd Room Podcast,
and San Diego Sabres Radio Podcast.
Head to StarWarsCommonwealth.com. Take your first steps to a larger world.
It's a wrap.
It's a wrap.